Chapter 1750. Thinking about it carefully, Long Chun gradually understood the various principles. Long Chun had displayed the 9 ice dragons in front of many people and used the power of the 9 ice dragons to defeat one enemy after another. Naturally, Long Chun's heavenly dragon art would become the first problem for those who wanted to deal with Long Chun. Even though Feng Qingyang's cultivation level was much higher than Long Chun's, when he heard that Long Chun was best at killing people above his cultivation level, he would have made some preparations in advance. This method was similar to taking the firewood from under the cauldron. He used his full strength to completely destroy Long Chun's heavenly dragon art. It seemed that Feng Qingyang had profited from this. The current situation was that not only did Long Chun lose the initiative, he was also forced to lose a part of his combat ability. The ice origin aura within the 9 ice dragons was almost completely destroyed. Although this did not completely destroy the 9 ice dragons, and it was not impossible for the medicinal fragrance to reform the ice origin aura, Feng Qingyang would definitely not give Long Chun the time to do so. A cold light flashed in Long Chun's eyes. He understood very well that if he blindly retreated at this time, he would lose the initiative and fall into a passive situation. It would be even more disadvantageous for him in the future battle. Thinking of this, Long Chun simply recalled the 9 ice dragons. At the same time, the heaven and earth fire dragon art circulated in his body, and the fire dragon phantom directly appeared in Long Chun's body. At the same time, the Hong Meng power around Long Chun continuously condensed. Then, Long Chun wrapped this rich Hong Meng power behind his back. Immediately, the violent and vigorous Hong Meng Qi ignited. Brilliant Sun. After successfully condensing the brilliant sun, Long Chun did not dare to hesitate. He immediately waved the dragon halberd in his hand and swept it in a circle. On one side, it swept up the rich Hong Meng power, and on the other, it brushed past the violent and vigorous Hong Meng red flame beside the brilliant sun. Without any explanation, it pierced towards Feng Qingyang. Naive. When Feng Qingyang saw Long Chun's attack, he immediately snorted coldly. His body once again released a fierce and biting cold wind. With a shocking speed, after drawing an arc in the air, it heavily struck the Hong Meng red flame that was formed by the dragon halberd. Boom! Feng Qingyang's power seemed to come from the wind between heaven and earth. While the Hong Meng red flame was burning fiercely in the air, the biting cold wind had already blown past. It directly blew away the icy aura of the entire world of ice and snow. Long Chun's Hong Meng red flame only lasted for a few breaths of time in this scene before it was completely extinguished. This time, the attack ended in failure. However, Long Chun was not discouraged. After all, his opponent was Feng Qingyang, who had the strength of the 8th layer of the Hong Meng Yuanjie. If he wanted to fight to the end, he would need to wrestle with his strength. Immediately after, Long Chun seized this opportunity to gain the upper hand. Taking advantage of the fact that Feng Qingyang had not completely recovered, the brilliant sun behind him directly followed Long Chun and rushed forward. Every time Long Chun waved the dragon halberd in his hand, it was mixed with the endless Hong Meng red flame that was released by the brilliant sun. Feng Qingyang was also unwilling to fall behind Long Chun. When he thought about how his strength was far above Long Chun's, Feng Qingyang directly prepared to forcibly resist Long Chun's attack this time. Even if he had to sacrifice himself, he also wanted to take the initiative in this battle. The two people did not say anything. On one side, they burst forth with endless Hong Meng red flame, and on the other side, they fought back and forth in the air. Outside the world of ice and snow, the onlookers gradually turned their attention from Long Yuan, Feng Wian, to Long Chun, Feng Qingyang. Obviously, the battle between Long Chun and Feng Qingyang was more of a spectator's view. Some of the people with decent strength and good eyesight, when they watched this battle, their expressions changed from indifference to a slightly solemn one. They had a surprising discovery. At this moment, in the battle between Long Chen and Feng Qingyang, although Feng Wuyan clearly did not use his full strength, Long Chen, who had an endless stream of attacks, also seemed to have a lot of tricks up his sleeves. Moreover, just when the two of them were preparing and had no choice but to fight with all their might, Long Chen's strength was unexpectedly slightly higher than Feng Qingyang's. Although it was only slightly higher, this alone was enough to prove Long Chen's strength. Hong Meng Yuan Jie's level 1 versus Hong Meng Yuan's level 8. To be able to stand for such a long time without showing any signs of defeat was really not easy. At this time, the onlookers finally reacted. It turned out that the current Long Chen was actually even stronger than the Long Chen who had killed Mu Wenhua and repelled Shan Tianqi. Many people also saw that Long Chen had advanced to the Hong Meng Yuan Jie. However, they could not understand why Long Chen, who was only level 1 of Hong Meng Yuan Jie, was able to erupt with such powerful strength. To a certain extent, he was not inferior to Feng Qingyang, who was only level 8 of Hong Meng Yuan Jie. Only Long Chen and Long Mu knew about this. Even Long Yuan and Long Chen did not have time to tell him this news. At this time, Long Chen had completely awakened the Heavenly Dragon bloodline. Just like how Long Yuan had successfully accepted all the demonic dragon's inheritance, the Heavenly Dragon bloodline that Long Chen had awakened greatly increased Long Chen's meridian's capacity and explosive power. Moreover, Long Chen's physical advantage had been greatly tempered as early as when he was in the clouds. Although these little by little strengthening could not directly increase Long Chen's realm, they naturally greatly increased Long Chen's potential realm to a certain extent. To put it bluntly, the so-called increase in cultivation realm, as long as it wasn't a major breakthrough, was just tempering one's body and strengthening one's meridians. To a certain extent, one's body would be able to better accept the primordial energy in this world. As long as one's realm was increased, it would bring about such benefits. However, for Long Chen, although Long Chen did not experience the process of increasing his realm, with the support of the Heavenly Dragon bloodline and the clouds, Long Chen could be considered to have increased his realm too many times. In other words, although Long Chen's current realm seemed to be level 1 of Hong Meng Yuan Jie, his true strength might not even be comparable to Feng Qingyang. Chapter 1751. Compared to the battle between Long Chen and Feng Qingyang, the battle between Long Yuan and Feng Wuyan did not attract much attention after a period of intense fighting. Instead, the battle between Long Yuan and Feng Wuyan had quietened down. It was not that the battle had completely stopped. The most fundamental reason was that Long Yuan and Feng Wuyan had tacitly dragged the battle into a contest of strength. Feng Wuyan did not know the reason for this. Long Yuan thought that it was because his strength had just been promoted to Hong Meng Yuan Jie, and his control over it was still not stable. Therefore, he chose to start a contest of strength. As for Feng Wuyan, Long Yuan thought that perhaps it was because the Hong Meng method he had used at the beginning was decisively broken by Long Yuan. Perhaps he had lost the means to fight for a while, and was thus forced into such a situation. The two of them faced each other in midair, and each of them emitted a strong Hong Meng vibration force. In this world of ice and snow, because of this Hong Meng vibration force, snowflakes danced in the air, and the cold wind was biting cold. However, in comparison, Feng Wuyan seemed to be slightly more relaxed. Perhaps it was because he was able to control the cold wind in the air. When the cold wind filled with the Hong Meng vibration force was about to hit Feng Wuyan was able to resolve it immediately. On the other hand, Long Yuan did not have this ability. However, it was still gratifying that because Long Yuan had completely accepted the inheritance of the Devil Dragon, the bloodline in his body had naturally been greatly strengthened by the inheritance of the Devil Dragon. No matter how cold the surrounding wind was, at most, it could only cause a little bit of pain on Long Yuan's surface. Feng Wuyan naturally did not expect Long Yuan to have such a trick up his sleeve. In his eyes, Long Yuan was only bitterly enduring the cold wind for the sake of keeping up appearances. Moreover, his body was unmoved, probably because he was frozen stiff. Therefore, Feng Wuyen began the next step of his plan, as if he had some ulterior motive. The Hong Meng force around Feng Wuyen began to gather in an extremely hidden way. The Hong Meng mark that was wrapped in the cold wind at the beginning was activated again. Obviously, Feng Wuyen had prepared his next attack. Waves of Hong Meng force, like a ghost, floated slightly, as if it was going to explode in this world of ice and snow. However, the next scene in front of Feng Wuyen shocked him greatly. Just as Feng Wuyen was distracted, Long Yuan's side also began to move inconspicuously. Of course, this inconspicuous was naturally only for Feng Wuyen. Among the onlookers below in the world of ice and snow, naturally, they could clearly see that Long Yuan had already completed his dazzling sun, just like Longchen. Brilliant sun. The vigorous Hong Meng scarlet flames burned fiercely behind Long Yuan. The explosive Hong Meng impact directly impacted the entire world of ice and snow. At the same time, the demonic dragon spear in Long Yuan's hand gathered again and again. The dragon soul in the demonic dragon spear directly communicated with the demonic dragon spear. After the demonic dragon's inheritance power in Long Yuan's body mixed and intertwined, a vast Hong Meng power condensed and formed in midair at lightning speed. In the next moment, it directly rushed towards Feng Wuyen. At this time, Feng Wuyen had just finished setting up the Hong Meng attack that he had prepared. He had not activated it at all. When Feng Wuyen realized this situation, the Hong Meng power that Long Yuan had condensed had already shattered the space. It was almost as if it was about to arrive in the next moment, directly in front of Feng Wuyen's eyes. At this time, how could Feng Wuyen still care about his own attack methods? He hurriedly activated the Hong Meng power around him. In a hurry, he used the powerful Hong Meng power in front of him to condense a Hong Meng barrier that could temporarily resist such a fierce Hong Meng attack. However, what Feng Wuyen did not expect was that although the Hong Meng barrier that he had condensed in a hurry was also infused with his own strength and could not completely resist an ordinary attack, it was still possible to resist for a while. However, in the face of such a powerful Hong Meng attack from Long Yuan, his Hong Meng barrier did not even last half a breath's time. Almost at the moment when the two forces collided, the Hong Meng barrier exploded. Long Yuan's Hong Meng power left a strong mark in the air. Then, like a meteorite, it heavily bombarded Feng Wuyen, who did not have any Hong Meng protection. Boom, boom, boom. Continuous Hong Meng explosions rang out. At the point where the Hong Meng power and Feng Wuyen's body intersected, a frenzied vibration spread out. At the moment of contact, the brilliant sun behind Long Yuan was almost activated to the extreme. At the same time, the power of the inheritance of the demonic dragon, instilled by the Sky Demon Dragon Spear, was also utilized to its peak by Long Yuan. This shocking Hong Meng attack almost instantly attracted the attention of everyone in this world of ice and snow. Feng Wuyen was directly suppressed by this Hong Meng attack. He did not have the slightest consciousness to resist and forcefully landed on the ground. It landed on the ground from midair, leaving behind a maelstrom of primordial chaos in midair. The Hong Meng attack that Feng Wuyen had condensed earlier also shattered the moment he landed on the ground. This scene completely exceeded everyone's expectations. Even Long Chen and Long Mu, who hoped for this to happen, could not help but have mixed feelings when they saw this scene. Long Yuan's strength was actually this strong? Long Chen took the time to smile and nod at Long Yuan while he was fighting Feng Qingyang. Long Yuan was naturally very happy and nodded at Long Chen as well. The astonishment on the faces of the others became even more intense. They had never imagined that this hothead, who had suddenly appeared out of nowhere, would actually be able to rely on brute force to kill Feng Wuyen, who was at the 8th level of the primordial origin realm, with just one blow. Moreover, his method was so clean and efficient. Seeing this scene, Shan Tianqi, who was standing beside the Tianfeng tribe, was really hesitant. Although he had already experienced Long Yuan's strength, he did not expect that in just half a month, Long Yuan's strength would rise to such a terrifying level again. With this kind of strength, if the scene in the inheritance hall was repeated, there was no need for Long Chen to summon the ice spirit ghost wolf. Shan Tianqi would have been forced out of his domain and self-destructed by Long Yuan. Chapter 1752. While Feng Qingyang was distracted by Feng Wuyan's defeat, Long Chen quickly stabbed out with the dragon halberd in his hand. A burst of Hong Meng's power swept through the air like a blazing sun. At the same time, the Hong Meng's power in Long Chen's meridians strengthened each of Long Chen's attacks by relying on the power of the Heaven and Earth Fire Dragon art. This time around, Long Chen's attack had caught Feng Qingyang off guard. After all, it was done in haste. Moreover, if Feng Qingyang had made a mistake before, he would be even more cautious. Even though his good brother Feng Wuyan had been defeated, Feng Qingyang only turned around to glance at him. In less than a breath's time, Feng Qingyang once again condensed Hong Meng's power around him and charged straight at Long Chen. Naturally, Feng Qingyang broke Long Chen's attack. A burst of violent Hong Meng's power gradually subsided. Long Chen and Feng Qingyang took a few steps back at the same time. The Hong Meng's power around them also gradually calmed down. This was the calm before the storm. At this time, the other side was accumulating power. They didn't even hold back and directly used their trump cards to attack. Although I thought of this from the start, it really happened. It's really unexpected. Feng Qingyang smiled. After the other members of the Tianfeng tribe went to help Feng Wuyan up, Feng Qingyang said to Hong Meng. Long Chen nodded. Although the dragon halberd in his hand was no longer protected by the 9 ice dragons, it still shone brightly. What's even more unexpected is yet to come. I'm not sure if you'll end up worse than your brother, Long Chen said with a smile. You and I are both smart people. There's no need to provoke me. Feng Qingyang snorted and said, I'm a little curious. What kind of opportunities did you encounter that allowed you to accumulate so many trump cards? 9 strands of primordial force, primordial ice soul, and the brilliant sun technique of the Red Sun tribe behind you. What's more, it seems like you have an even more secretive trump card in your hands. Could it be that you're really from the Red Sun tribe? Even if you're from the Red Sun tribe, you can't have so many trump cards. After being boasted by Feng Qingyang for a while, Long Chen was a little happy. To be able to have someone acknowledge his strength, even if it was an opponent, this kind of sincere recognition really made Long Chen feel proud. The Red Sun tribe has nothing to do with me. The origin of the brilliant sun technique is indeed a bit complicated. If we were friends, maybe I would really find time to tell you my experience. However, since you're standing on the opposite side of me, I won't tell you these things even if you ask me. Long Chen shook his head and said helplessly, If you don't tell me, I'm too lazy to listen. After you die, find someone who knows the soul-searching technique. I'll know everything after 100 years. Feng Qingyang's expression suddenly changed, as if he was about to do something big. It seems that you're very confident? Long Chen raised his eyebrows and said, Since you know how many trump cards I have, why are you still pushing me? Could it be that this inheritance is so important to you? Feng Qingyang sneered and said, Long Chen, don't you know the reason? My Tianfeng tribe is a big family and has a big business. Why would we care about the inheritance of a tribe in a small spiritual world that has been destroyed for many years? I'm here to kill you for another reason. Hearing this, Long Chen's expression immediately became more dignified. He quickly asked, Then why? I don't think I've provoked any forces. Those who have a grudge against me won't be able to invite the Tianfeng tribe. Feng Qingyang laughed and said, You're thinking too much. You're really thinking too much. Even if my Tianfeng tribe isn't good enough, we won't do such shady business. Naturally, I won't tell you all of this. After all, a dead person doesn't need to know so much. As Feng Qingyang's words fell, waves of primordial astral wind swept out from his body. At the same time, both of his hands began to form seals. One after another, hand gestures that contained deep meaning rushed out. The primordial qi around his body was like a tide as it swept over with a loud bang. What a pity! If you were a member of my Tianfeng tribe, my Tianfeng tribe would definitely be able to rely on your power to reach the top of the Hong Meng polar tribes in 100 years. Feng Qingyang said clearly. Boom. Just as Feng Qingyang said this, the Hong Meng power around Feng Qingyang was also pushed to the extreme in a few short breaths. With the strange increase in this energy, the Hong Meng wind in this world of ice and snow also became more and more difficult to control. However, it was as if these Hong Meng winds were gathering because of Feng Qingyang. At this moment, almost every wave of Hong Meng wind contained the power of the Hong Meng shattering force produced by Feng Qingyang's strength just now. This force was mixed in the void, and these Hong Meng winds contained a strong force that seemed to want to shatter the void. Seeing this, Long Chen recalled that when he was watching the battle previously, he had seen Feng Wuyan stimulate a similar force in front of Long Yuan. At that time, he had suspected that the Tianfeng tribe's power came from the wind between heaven and earth. Now, it seemed that Long Chen's guess was right. The Hong Meng wind whistled. Feng Qingyang's entire body twitched because of this violent whistling of the Hong Meng wind. His body constantly released vigorous Hong Meng qi, which pushed the Hong Meng wind in the air to the extreme. For a moment, the expressions of those who were watching the battle on the outskirts of the world of ice and snow seemed to have frozen. They did not move at all. Anyone could see that Feng Qingyang wanted to end this battle quickly and not leave any more troubles for the future. Long Chen, you made me use this move. Even if you die today, your name will be known throughout the small spiritual world. Oh no, it will be known throughout the entire polar region of Hong Meng. Feng Qingyang shouted at Long Chen with a ferocious expression amidst the whistling of the wind. In the world of ice and snow, snowflakes danced wildly. Ice and snow flew everywhere. The Hong Meng wind blew until the sky changed color. Those who were outside the world of ice and snow could not help but retreat a long distance from the impact of the cold wind. Not to mention Long Chen, who was right in the middle of the Hong Meng wind. Chapter 1753. The Hong Meng wind was biting cold. The whistling sound of the wind bombarded everyone's eardrums. The air waves were filled with the chilling Hong Meng's explosive force. The technique that Feng Qingyang had used had unrestrainedly borrowed the biting cold wind from the world of ice and snow. Then, he had added his own primordial chaos into the primordial astral wind. After a series of catalysis, the astral wind, which contained a strong primordial chaos explosive force, began to circulate throughout the world of ice and snow. It was like a sea of clouds. The primordial chaos explosive force that flowed within the astral wind was even stronger than the pain that Long Chen had experienced in the cloud. Above this world of ice and snow, there was a figure standing upright like a giant statue above the pair of boundless Hong Meng qi waves. The Tianfeng tribe could control wind and thunder. The Hong Meng wind in the world of ice and snow went berserk. Wave after wave of Hong Meng vortexes continuously exploded and gathered in the world. The explosive force that was released during this period of time caused everyone in the middle of the Hong Meng wind to experience pain all over their body. At that moment, Feng Qingyang's expression gradually became malevolent. Beneath him, the berserk mass of the Hong Meng air waves below him were like a crazy demonic beast that Feng Qingyang could control. Who knew when it would ferociously bite? The spectators on the periphery of the world of ice and snow also gradually calmed down after retreating for a long distance. At least for now, the terrifying Hong Meng air waves in the night market were not a threat to their lives. They could also better express their opinions. As expected of one of the top 10 tribes, The foundation of the Tianfeng tribe is really not something that an ordinary large tribe can compare with. It's too early to say that. Long Chen hasn't revealed his trump card yet. This battle won't end so easily. Feng Qingyang even used the ultimate technique of the Tianfeng tribe. You should know that this is a technique that only Hongmeng Tianjing can use. I really don't know how Feng Qingyang managed to use this technique with the strength of Hongmeng Yuanjie. This is nothing. You don't know that Long Chen used the strength of the Hongmeng consolidation realm to forcefully use the technique of Hongmeng Tianjing beside the lake in Hongmeng. There's such a thing? What's Long Chen's background? The surrounding spectators were clearly divided into two factions. Most of them supported Feng Qingyang. After all, Feng Qingyang's strength and the foundation of the Tianfeng tribe were there for all to see. Not to mention, at this very moment, the dozens of experts from the Tianfeng tribe had yet to make a move. The chances of winning this battle were much higher. Naturally, there were also some people who still thought highly of Long Chen. In their hearts, Long Chen, who had continuously created miracles, still had the ability to create miracles at this very moment. After all, these people's so-called support was just words in this place. When one side lost, they wouldn't gain anything, nor would they lose anything. More or less, this could be considered as a bystander with a clear view. The Hongmeng wind swept over Long Chen's body. It was biting cold. Long Chen frowned slightly. The dragon halberd in his hand was vertical. The brilliant sun behind him had shrunk a lot, but the burning Hongmeng flames were still as strong as ever. Long Chen, it's not a pity to die at my hands. A muffled yet forceful shout passed through the biting cold astral wind and reached Long Chen's ears. Before Long Chen could respond, Feng Qingyang waved his hands. In an instant, the originally violent Hongmeng power in this world of ice and snow became more orderly at this moment. However, this wasn't a good thing for Long Chen, because this orderly Hongmeng power was rushing towards Long Chen, shattering the void wind 9 extremes. The moment his voice fell, the Hongmeng power that was capable of destroying the world rushed towards Long Chen. To be more precise, it was the Hongmeng power that was rushing towards him. Immediately, the entire world of ice and snow was completely locked down. Although Long Chen could move, no matter how fast Long Chen moved, he couldn't dodge this attack. Feng Qingyang actually condensed another wave of Hongmeng power in a situation where he had such a huge advantage. His entire body rushed towards Long Chen. Obviously, his actions were to completely kill Long Chen. At the same time, what was even more unexpected was that the dozen Hongmeng Yuan experts of the Tianfeng tribe, who had been quietly waiting at the side, actually condensed Hongmeng power around them at the same time when Feng Qingyang made his move. The dozen of them channeled their power together, and in less than 2 breaths, they condensed a violent pillar of Hongmeng qi, which directly surged towards Long Yuan, who had just obtained a chance to catch his breath. The might of the heavenly wind, coexistence of the 9 extremes. An orderly shout rang out from the mouths of all the Tianfeng tribe members. After that, Long Chen and Long Yuan had to deal with the joint attack of these dozen people. Boom! The Hongmeng power swept through the world like a shattering wave. Before Long Chen and Long Yuan could react properly, this powerful aura completely wrapped around them. Wherever the Hongmeng astral wind passed, the biting cold wind blew. The explosive force impacted the surrounding space. The thick layer of snow under this world of ice and snow seemed to show signs of shattering at this moment. This offensive aura was only moving in midair. If it really bombarded something, it would explode with explosive force. Long Chen didn't dare to imagine how much explosive force it would cause. Hongmeng Firmament Realm's spell? A trace of coldness flashed in Long Chen's eyes. He naturally saw through Feng Qingyang's stance. It wasn't strange for Long Chen to be able to use the Hongmeng Tianjing technique. After all, in general, Long Chun had already used the Hong Meng Tianjing technique when he was at the Consolidation Realm in Hong Meng. Although at that time, it was because of the surrounding Hong Meng Lake that he was able to use it without restraint and without restraint. However, if Long Chun was determined to use it now, it wouldn't be impossible. However, at this moment, even if Long Chun used the Hong Meng Tianjing technique, it would be somewhat useless. After all, what Long Chun needed the most now was to completely block Feng Qingyang's attack. Even if he couldn't completely block it, he couldn't bear too much. After all, he still needed to defeat Feng Qingyang. Chapter 1754. Long Chun wasn't too worried about dealing with the combined attack of more than a dozen 5th-level Hong Meng Yuan Jie experts. After the battle just now, Long Chun had a rough idea of the situation. Although Long Yuan's strength was only at the 1st level of Hong Meng Yuan Jie, Long Yuan could deal with any attack below the level of Hong Meng Tianjing with the power of the demonic dragon inheritance. Even if he couldn't deal with it, at least he wouldn't be defeated too badly. How could the combined attack of more than a dozen 5th-level Hong Meng Yuan Jie experts be no match for a single attack from Hong Meng Tianjing? The answer was very clear. The two couldn't be compared at all. If one really had to describe it, perhaps the combined attack of more than 100 Hong Meng Yuan Jie experts would be able to cause some impact to Hong Meng Tianjing experts. Hong Meng Tianjing was only one step away from the legendary Hong Meng Dao ancestor. This realm could no longer be considered a realm, but a harsh division. Even if one was a heaven's pride and could successfully ascend to Hong Meng Yuan Jie, when he tried to ascend to Hong Meng Tianjing, he would still encounter major problems. In the 9 polar regions, except for the Dragon Clan, who were born as Hong Meng Yuan Jie experts, most people were born as ordinary people who had to condense primal chaos chi. Almost 80% of people could successfully condense primal chaos chi and ascend to Hong Meng's primal chaos realm. Generally speaking, as long as one's talent wasn't too bad, when one ascended to Hong Meng's 9th-level primal chaos realm, one would eventually break through to the Hong Meng's consolidation realm. When one reached the Hong Meng's consolidation realm, one could see the gap between them. Some people with poor talent had no hope of improvement. They could only stay in Hong Meng's consolidation realm for the rest of their lives and live a mediocre life. There were also many people who didn't have enough talent, but still put in a lot of effort. Even so, they could only reach the 9th level of Hong Meng Yuan Jie, which was one step away from Hong Meng's consolidation realm. The 9th level of Hong Meng's consolidation realm was a major watershed. Almost 70% of the people in the 9 polar regions who had embarked on the path of cultivation would fall at this place. They wouldn't be able to condense domain realm for the rest of their lives and ascend to the Hong Meng Yuan Jie. Hong Meng Tianjing. Hong Meng Tianjing's translation was in Hong Meng Yuan Jie. Is Meng Yuan Jie translation. Therefore, this was one of the reasons why Hong Meng Tianjing was so powerful. The combined attack of more than a dozen Hong Meng Yuan Jie experts seemed terrifying. In fact, whether it was Long Chun, Long Mu, or Long Yuan, the person involved, none of them took it seriously. What they really needed to focus on was the Hong Meng hurricane in front of Long Chun. What Feng Qingyang used was a Hong Meng Tianjing technique that only Hong Meng Yuan Jie experts could master. When this technique was used by a Hong Meng Tianjing expert, although it couldn't display the strong power of heaven and earth, at least when Feng Qingyang fully used this technique, ordinary Hong Meng Yuan Jie experts naturally couldn't resist it. They didn't even have the thought to resist. Take Long Chen's former opponent, Mu Wenhua, for example. The moment he saw Long Chen use the Hong Meng Tianjing technique, his heart seemed to have died. He no longer had the strength to continue fighting. In just a few breaths, he was completely killed by Long Chen. Now, Long Chen switched to Mu Wenhua's side. What he needed to deal with was Feng Qingyang's Hong Meng Tianjing technique. Long Chen calmed his mind. Hong Meng swept past him. In an instant, Long Chen's body seemed to twitch. Then, the temperature of Long Chen's body began to rise. The sun behind Long Chen seemed to have received a great boost at this time. It expanded in an instant, just like Hong Meng's catalyst. It began to burn vigorously. Boom! At the same time, a powerful Hong Meng Qi pillar erupted from Long Chen's body. In Long Chen's meridians, the faint shadow of a fire dragon began to expand violently from this moment on. Flames suddenly filled the air. The fire dragon's shadow in Long Chen's body also left his body at this moment. Just like the black flame dragon, Long Chen's heaven and earth fire dragon art could also condense the fire dragon's shadow into a physical entity. In the past, the fire dragon's shadow in Long Chen's body only played a great role in stabilizing the surging Hong Meng Qi in Long Chen's body when he was fighting. This allowed Long Chen to fight better. Now, Long Chen condensed the fire dragon's shadow into a physical entity and made it leave his body. This was just like the heavenly dragon art. Long Chen had the ability to command the fire dragon's shadow. However, compared to the 9 ice dragons, the fire dragon's shadow's function was not limited to this. The reason why the heaven and earth fire dragon art was mysterious and the cultivation conditions were so harsh was because of the fire dragon's shadow. However, everything happened too quickly. Long Chen's fire dragon's shadow had just condensed. Before Long Chen could start the next step of his plan, Feng Qingyang's speed unexpectedly increased. The fierce Hong Meng wind rushed to Long Chen's front 3 breaths earlier than Long Chen expected. The Hong Meng wind exploded. Under the gaze of everyone outside the ice and snow, this attack that contained all of Feng Qingyang's effort crashed into the fire dragon's shadow that Long Chen condensed. Feng Qingyang naturally understood that at this time, Long Chen would definitely not use any tricks like camouflage. Therefore, he concluded that the fire dragon's shadow that Long Chen condensed with great effort was Long Chen's preparation to block his attack this time. Therefore, Feng Qingyang immediately made a decision. He must destroy Long Chen's fire dragon's shadow like how he destroyed Long Chen's 9 ice dragons. In this way, even if Long Chen could resist his attack this time, Long Chen would lose several trump cards in succession. His momentum would definitely decline again and again. At that time, Feng Qingyang would be only one step away from victory. Clang! The ferocious primordial explosion force, accompanied by gusts of primordial astral wind, swept up the fire dragon's silhouette. At this time, the sun behind Long Chen became particularly dim. At the same time, when Long Chen's fire dragon's shadow was wrapped up by the Hong Meng wind, Long Yuan's shadow collided with the full force attack of the Hong Meng Yuan powerhouse. Chapter 1755. An ear-piercing explosion resounded in the sky above the world of ice and snow. The Hong Meng astral wind wrapped around Long Chen's body, and the explosive force pierced Long Chen's body inch by inch. The violent impact directly shook Long Chen's body for a long distance. Seeing this scene, the spectators outside the world of ice and snow immediately let out a burst of exclamations and sighs. These people could see that even a Hong Meng Tianjing expert would be seriously injured by such a powerful attack from the Hong Meng astral wind. After all, this was a technique that could only be performed by an expert in the Hong Meng firmament realm. However, before these people's exclamations and sighs could dissipate, they actually made another shocking discovery. This discovery naturally caused their voices to come to an abrupt halt. Originally, under such a powerful Hong Meng astral wind, Long Chen had no power to resist. Naturally, it would not take long for him to be bombarded to the ground by these explosive forces. In other words, he would be thrown out by the Hong Meng astral wind. This was what everyone expected. However, this scene did not happen. When the crowd realized this, they found that Long Chen, who was originally swept up in the Hong Meng astral wind, had disappeared at this moment. At this time, the force swept up in the Hong Meng astral wind began to fiercely echo and burst out in midair. waves of fanatical Hong Meng Qi rushed out. Perhaps Feng Qingyang also realized that something was wrong. He quickly stopped his Hong Meng Qi and could not help but approach the Hong Meng Qi to find out where Long Chun had gone. At this moment, the world of ice and snow had become especially quiet. Even the sound of the wind that continuously whistled past gradually calmed down under Feng Qingyang's control. Finally, after a long time, the crowd was shocked to find that a trace of flame had appeared in the Hong Meng Qi in midair. The flame gradually accumulated from a weak trace. Finally, at a certain opportunity, or rather, a moment of preparation, it suddenly burst out. At this time, in this burning flame, the shadow of a fire dragon became particularly bright in the eyes of the crowd. Almost at the same time, beside the shadow of the fire dragon, a figure holding a dragon halberd unexpectedly stood in the middle of the Hong Meng astral wind, surrounded by a layer of seemingly weak, but in fact very strong, Hong Meng astral wind. The Hong Meng astral wind contained the explosive force of Hong Meng, which was enough to kill everything in the world. However, Long Chun stood in the middle of the Hong Meng astral wind so brazenly. Such an unexpected scene caused everyone present to cry out in surprise. Feng Qingyang was not surprised either. This slightly comical turn of events directly caused the people who had exclaimed or sighed to lose face. At this moment, they looked at Long Chun as if they were looking at a monster. Before everyone could fully digest this amazing thing, on the other side of the battlefield, it could be said that something even more amazing had happened. After the all-out attack of a Hong Meng Yuan Jie expert landed on Long Yuan, the snowflakes and ice fragments in the world of ice and snow dissipated. At this moment, Long Yuan, who everyone thought was going to die without a doubt, was crazily brandishing the dragon halberd in his hand. Although his clothes were tattered, he still erupted with an unstoppable and terrifying aura of Hong Meng. How can this be? The dozen or so Hong Meng Yuan Jie experts exclaimed together, and some even sucked in a breath of cold air. Before these experts could fully understand what had happened, Long Yuan directly activated the heavenly demon dragon spear in his hand, and a vast and fierce aura of Hong Meng suddenly burst out from his body. Without waiting for them to fully prepare, it rushed towards the dozen or so Hong Meng Yuan Jie experts. The dozen or so Hong Meng Yuan Jie experts were finally completely embarrassed by the scene before them. Even Feng Qingyang could not withstand the all-out attack from before, but Long Yuan really did it just like that? It seemed that it was not a fluke that he was able to defeat Feng Wuyan. Under the pressure of Long Yuan's powerful aura of Hong Meng, even the world of ice and snow seemed to have stopped emitting cold. Boom! Endless Hong Meng aura erupted from Long Yuan's body, and the heavenly demon dragon spear in his hand ignited with bursts of Hong Meng flames. At this moment, the dragon's soul had already burst out with all its strength, and the power of the devil dragon around Long Yuan's body was also completely released at this moment. Vague dragon roars resounded in the world of ice and snow, and the heavenly demon dragon spear in Long Yuan's hand actually began to rebel against his command. At this moment, Long Yuan, or strictly speaking, could no longer be considered a complete Long Yuan. The inheritance of the devil dragon had completely taken over his body, and Long Yuan had already lost his mind. At this moment, all that was left in Long Yuan's body was this battle instinct. Clang clang! The heavenly demon dragon's spear streaked across the sky, and the falling snowflakes immediately evaporated into a cloud of smoke. The low roar of Hong Meng resounded throughout the world, and balls of condensed Hong Meng energy pillars fell wantonly between heaven and earth. The entire world of ice and snow was already under the control of this Hong Meng. This domain seemed to be made by nature, and under the support of the fanatical Hong Meng, it actually successfully engulfed a group of Hong Meng Yuan Jie powerhouses without them knowing. It should be known that in a battle between Hong Meng Yuan Jie powerhouses, they almost never used any domain techniques. For them, a domain was just a method to promote their own strength. They would only use it when dealing with powerhouses below the level of Hongmeng Yuanjie. After all, using a domain to bully Hongmeng's consolidation realm powerhouses was one of the great pleasures of Hongmeng Yuanjie powerhouses. However, right now, Long Yuan's condensed domain was not like how Hongmeng Yuanjie powerhouses would deal with Hongmeng's Hongmeng consolidation realm powerhouses, where they would forever restrict the opponent's absorption and movement. What Long Yuan wanted to do was to focus all of these people's attention on himself. The so-called success or failure would be decided in an instant. As long as he could deceive these people who had yet to figure out what was going on, Long Yuan would have achieved the first step of his plan. Chapter 1756. At this moment, it would be more accurate to call the land of Hongmeng the land of ice and snow. The powerful Hongmeng storm that emanated from Long Yuan's body finally bombarded the bodies of the dozens of Hongmeng Yuanjie experts when his domain was fully formed. This was Long Yuan's plan. He used his own domain as bait to lure the Hongmeng Yuanjie experts to flee under certain circumstances. Human nature was more or less like this. If there was no resistance around them, perhaps they would choose to face the difficulties that they needed to face. However, if there was a resistance that the organization had given up on when facing difficulties, people would immediately tear this resistance apart. Even if people didn't want to run away, this was human nature. It was to be fully prepared. There were only a few people who could really cut off their means of retreat and sink their boat. The ominous aura that filled the sky condensed. In the land of ice and snow, a voice that shook the heavens and the earth suddenly exploded. The voice carried the power of Hongmeng, creating ripples of Hongmeng between heaven and earth. At this moment, Long Yuan seemed to have really turned into a demonic dragon. Destroy! The deep Hongmeng command came out in between Long Yuan's dragon roars. The sky demon dragon's spear flashed with a bright red light. Long Yuan's clothes were completely torn apart. The Hongmeng around him also completely collapsed at this moment. The dozens of Hongmeng Yuanjie experts chose to flee the moment before the attack came. Although they had successfully shattered Long Yuan's domain, it was Long Yuan who obtained the benefits. Most experts only needed a moment to exchange blows. If the dozens of Hongmeng Yuanjie experts did not join forces to resist, they would be like the same Hongmeng Yuanjie experts. What awaited them was only unpredictable Hongmeng attacks. After the sound of the Hongmeng air waves that reverberated throughout heaven and earth, the dozens of Hongmeng Yuanjie experts fell to the ground at the same time. In this thick land of ice and snow, they smashed one huge hole after another. At this moment, the spectators on the periphery of the land of ice and snow did not make any sound. Perhaps it was because they were so shocked by this scene that they were speechless. Even Long Chen, who was in Hongmeng's astral winds at this moment, was shocked when he saw this happen from afar. Long Chen originally thought that Long Yuan had only taken advantage of this half a month to completely accept the power of the demonic dragon's inheritance and successfully advance to Hongmeng Yuanjie. Even if he had successfully defeated Fenghuiyan, even Long Chen thought that Long Yuan was just lucky. But now, this scene was enough to blind Long Chen. It really shocked Long Chen so much that he stopped for a few breaths of time to instill knowledge into the Hongmeng strongholds around Hongmeng. At this moment, Long Chen remembered something that Long Mu had told him before. Long Chen's physique was the strongest among the dragon clan, the heavenly dragon physique. Long Yuan's physique was the rarest ancestral physique in the dragon clan. It should be known that the potential of the ancestral physique was to completely return to the dragon clan's original strength. Even the heavenly dragon was a product of the dragon clan's original inheritance. In comparison, Long Yuan's future achievements would definitely surpass Long Chen's by far. Fortunately, Long Yuan was his disciple. He probably would not have any hostility towards Long Chen in this lifetime. Feng Qingyang looked at the desolate state of his tribe's experts and immediately felt his face turn gloomy. Even the Hong Meng gang he controlled had shrunk a lot because of this. From the looks of it, you are the only one in your Heavenly Wind tribe who is capable. My disciple is able to defeat everyone other than you. Long Chen grinned as he looked at Feng Qingyang, who had a bitter expression on his face, and said with a smile. Feng Qingyang forcibly suppressed his anger and said with a bitter smile, "It's not a big deal. Anyway, this battle is only for you. As long as I kill you, your disciple can do whatever he wants. No matter how weak the people in my tribe are, they are still the strongest in the Hongmeng Yuanjie. So what if they are strong on the outside but weak on the inside? At least they can hold the fort. Moreover, after today, no outsiders will casually leak this matter. What do I have to worry about?" Long Chen laughed and said, "I originally thought that you wouldn't be worried. However, after explaining it to me, it seems that you're really concerned. You're courting death." Feng Qingyang's face immediately turned violent when his worries were exposed. Long Chen knew that Feng Qingyang's state of mind was finally disturbed by him. He quickly grasped this rare opportunity and directly expanded his Hongmeng barrier. At the same time, the dragon halberd in Long Chen's hand began to emit bursts of flames. The fire dragon shadow outside the Hongmeng barrier expanded again. Long Chen waved his dragon halberd and emitted flames that directly penetrated the Hongmeng barrier and invaded the Hongmeng gang wind in the world of ice and snow. The Hongmeng gang wind swept across the land. While the force of the explosion continued, there was no way to extinguish the flames burning in the Hongmeng gang wind. It was like the ball of flame had fused into the primordial astral wind. At this moment, Feng Qingyang finally reacted. Not only had the flames merged with the Hongmeng gang wind, but even the fire dragon shadow from before had also merged with his Hongmeng gang wind. Long Chen could tell that Feng Qingyang knew what he had done. He no longer held back. At this moment, the fire dragon shadow burst forth with a powerful Hongmeng force and directly condensed the Hongmeng barrier around Long Chen into a solid state. As the Hongmeng barrier developed, Feng Qingyang realized that the Hongmeng barrier was actually Long Chen's domain. Long Chen had unknowingly merged his domain into the Hongmeng gang wind. Feng Qingyang was not prepared for this situation at all. In fact, Feng Qingyang had never seen anyone who could survive in the Hongmeng gang wind. In the past, whenever Feng Qingyang used this technique, he would immediately kill the other party. But now, Long Chen had managed to survive using his domain. This really shocked Feng Qingyang. The power of a domain was actually so strong. Chapter 1757. It was the Peerless Dragon Emperor's domain. The domain was unique to Hongmeng Yuanjie experts. Many Hongmeng Consolidation Realm experts spent their entire lives searching for a domain that belonged to them. However, once they reached the Hongmeng Yuanjie, the Hongmeng Yuanjie experts would spend their entire lives trying to get rid of their domain. The reason was simple. The unique realm of the Hongmeng Tianjing experts was a golden firmament core. This golden firmament core was condensed from their own domain. However, the true strength of the domain was currently circulating in the 9 polar regions. It was just a simple and effective method used by the Hongmeng Yuanjie expert, Yong AI, to oppress the Hongmeng Consolidation Realm experts. Why didn't the primordial realm experts use such methods to oppress the primordial chaos primordial realm experts? The reason was obvious. Did the primordial chaos primordial realm experts eat a golden firmament pill? Why would they provoke the primordial realm experts? Therefore, as time passed, the Hongmeng Yuanjie experts no longer dealt with the Hongmeng Consolidation Realm experts. They rarely used their own Hongmeng domain. What Feng Qingyang had never expected was that the best way to deal with his void-shattering technique was to use the domain that most Hongmeng Yuanjie experts looked down on. Feng Qingyang should have thought of this when Long Chen propped up his Hongmeng barrier. Feng Qingyang could not help but blame himself for this. However, things had already come to this point. Even if Feng Qingyang regretted it, it would be useless. Long Chun had completely broken out of Feng Qingyang's Hong Meng air mass by relying on the protection of the domain. If Feng Qingyang wanted to defeat or even kill Long Chun, he would have to rely on this battle. However, Feng Qingyang was not very afraid of this. After all, the difference in strength was obvious. Moreover, even if he could not kill Long Chun with his strongest technique, Feng Qingyang was confident that he could drag Long Chun down with him in the upcoming battle. However, there was a prerequisite. The person next to Long Chun and Long Yuan, who had just displayed his strength, could not intervene. At least, they could not intervene when Long Chun was in danger. However, anyone with a discerning eye could see that this was very difficult. Moreover, what made Feng Qingyang even more upset was that the dozen people of the Tianfeng tribe, except for himself, had been seriously injured by Long Yuan. They were all lying on the ground, groaning in pain. It seemed that they would not be able to fight for a while. However, fortunately, there was another person who would definitely stand on Feng Qingyang's side with the Tianfeng tribe. Shan Tianqi. At this time, Shan Tianqi had already self-destructed the domain, completely cutting off his future space for advancement. However, it was also because of this that Shan Tianqi saved his life. However, no matter what, Shan Tianqi was still a fifth-level primordial realm powerhouse that he could take on. His strength was not high or low, but it was enough to deal with some unexpected situations. Having such a helper was better than not having one. Feng Qingyang looked at Shan Tianqi helplessly. After throwing a few fierce glances, Feng Qingyang focused his mind again. Feng Qingyang thought that he would help Shan Tianqi if he could. If he could not come, he would not have to worry about him causing trouble. Could be said that at this time, Feng Qingyang could be said to be alone to some extent. From time to time, Feng Qingyang looked at his companions on the ground, who were in pain. His attitude toward Long Chun became more serious. Shan Tianqi was a smart person. After seeing Feng Qingyang's eyes, he immediately understood Feng Qingyang's intention. He immediately rushed over. Shan Tianqi's initial goal was to let Feng Qingyang kill Long Chun. No matter what, he wanted to avenge himself. Although the current situation was out of Shan Tianqi's expectations, Shan Tianqi would not give up as long as there was a glimmer of hope to kill Long Chun. As for the matter that required his help, Shan Tianqi would not take it to heart. After all, he would forever be in the fifth layer of the Hong Meng Yuanjia. This battle might be the last battle of Shan Tianqi's life. Shan Tianqi used his last bit of vigor to prove that he had lived an awe-inspiring life in order to fulfill an unrealistic and unjust dream. That was the end of Shan Tianqi's life. The world of cultivators seemed to be so cruel. Just like Yanli, whom Long Chun knew before. When Yanli said that he would not follow Long Chun to the small spiritual world to seek opportunities, but chose to be the chief of the Yen tribe, Long Chun knew that the hot-blooded Yanli he once knew was already dead. However, perhaps he would have to wait for 100 years before Yanli could rest in peace. At this moment, Shan Tianqi was like Yanli. Because he would never be able to increase his cultivation level, he was also close to death. However, the thought of revenge against Long Chun was still able to support Shan Tianqi's last bit of vigor. Seeing that Shan Tianqi was in position, Feng Qingyang also used 120% of his energy. Immediately after, the Hong Meng astral wind around him slowly condensed. The moment the astral wind was formed, it swept towards Long Chun. Astral wind whistled over. Faintly, it actually emitted a wave of primordial energy that shook one's heart. Boom! The astral wind enveloped a large area around Long Chun without any explanation. The biting cold wind within it actually started to tremble at this moment. Long Chun smiled slightly. The Hong Meng force around him also erupted at this moment. At this moment, Long Chun finally no longer felt the tension and pressure from before. He could also fight with Feng Qingyang properly. The fire dragon shadow once again entered Long Chen's body. In an instant, Long Chen's meridians were filled with the stability of the realm brought by the heaven and earth fire dragon art. In other words, in the following battle, Long Chen did not have to worry about the ownership of his Hongmeng force. Whoosh! A cold light flashed past. The heaven and earth fire dragon around Long Chen's body rapidly expanded. At this moment, the dragon halberd in his hand was also quickly brandished. The Hongmeng force that the heaven and earth fire dragon art gave to Long Chen was raised to the extreme. In less than 2 to 3 breaths, the world around Long Chen was filled with a blazing Hongmeng force. This was a heaven and earth fire dragon. It contained an extremely expanding force. If one was not careful, this world would condense into a domain. Perhaps this domain would condense into a heaven and earth fire dragon. Chapter 1758. Suddenly, as if Feng Qingyang's eyes were intertwined, Long Chen, who was in the distance, suddenly burst out with raging flames around him. His skin was covered in a layer of flames. A faintly discernible scale appeared on his skin. This kind of scale, in this world of ice and snow, reflected a faint red light, appearing particularly magnificent. At this moment, Feng Qingyang finally felt a little fear from the bottom of his heart. This kind of fear came from a person's curiosity towards the unknown. Perhaps a true expert would not feel this kind of fear even after death. Or perhaps some cowardly people would often feel this kind of fear. However, this kind of fear was very different from the fear that Feng Qingyang was feeling right now. Feng Qingyang was not a timid person. On the contrary, Feng Qingyang was famous for his courage ever since he stepped onto the path of cultivation. Otherwise, it would be impossible for him to have the limelight he had today. One must know that to be the leader of a large tribe, not only did one need to be strong, one also needed to have great adaptability, not to mention a large tribe like the Tianfeng tribe, which was ranked as one of the top 10 tribes in the polar regions of Hongmeng. It was even more difficult to be a good leader. However, Feng Qingyang really did have this ability. His ability was naturally extremely strong. Even if everyone in the Tianfeng tribe had been seriously injured by this strong dragon flame, it would be difficult for them to fight for a while. Moreover, his strongest attack had been luckily neutralized by Long Chen. Feng Qingyang still did not feel that kind of fear. At that time, he still had great confidence that he could defeat Long Chen. At that time, to him, defeating Long Chen was just a matter of a little effort. After all, in many people's eyes, the difference in strength determined everything. However, when Feng Qingyang saw a layer of faint red scales condense on the surface of Long Chen's skin, Feng Qingyang, such a person, actually felt fear. For a moment, Feng Qingyang could not imagine what kind of cultivation method could actually transform a person's body structure. Moreover, during the transformation process, it was filled with such a powerful force. Even though Long Chen was about 200 feet away at this time, Feng Qingyang was still slightly trembling from the Hongmeng waves that swept over from afar. Flame Dragon. Just as Feng Qingyang's heart was still worried, Long Chen, who was 200 feet away, suddenly shouted. His voice was filled with the power of Hongmeng. Although it was in this world of ice and snow, Hongmeng translation, one after another, Hongmeng waves, Feng Qingyang, Feng Qingyang, Feng Qingyang suddenly came to his senses. Hurriedly began to condense Hongmeng translation. This time, the two people's roles were reversed. Long Chen attacked, while Feng Qingyang defended. Feng Qingyang was very clear that once Long Chen attacked, there was no possibility of probing. As long as he could safely block Long Chen's attack this time, the situation would be under his control. At that time, as long as the person beside Long Chen did not attack, and Long Yuan did not cause trouble, Feng Qingyang was very confident that he could complete this task. In this way, the Tianfeng tribe that Feng Qingyang represented would be of some help to the organization. If they succeeded in the future, the Tianfeng tribe would still be one of the top 10 tribes in Hongmeng. Feng Qingyang only hoped that in this small spiritual world, his decision to place an order without communicating with the tribe would be recognized by the tribe members who would succeed in the future. In this way, other than him, no one else would have the qualifications to be the next chief of the Tianfeng tribe. In the blink of an eye, Feng Qingyang had prepared his strongest defense. Feng Qingyang was very confident. Even though Long Chun had already displayed an attack that was enough to make him feel fear, Feng Qingyang felt that with his many years of experience in the Hongmeng Yuanjie, it should not be difficult for him to withstand this attack. The instant Feng Qingyang made up his mind, a wave of formidable primordial force erupted from Long Chen's body. The fire dragon silhouette within the meridians of his body also abruptly left his body at this moment. This time, the moment the phantom left Long Chen's body, it suddenly released a wave of Hongmeng force that shook the heavens and the earth. After only 5 breaths of time, the fire dragon phantom became even more refined and dignified under the astonished gazes of the crowd. In the end, the fire dragon phantom, which was originally less than an inch long, actually condensed into a real fire dragon that was almost 10 feet tall in this world of ice and snow. At this moment, the crowd finally realized why Long Chun had burst out with such words. It turned out that the fire dragon that Long Chun had spoken of was actually real. While the crowd understood tacitly, the shock that came from the bottom of their hearts slowly condensed on their faces. What happened next was even more shocking to everyone. Long Chen, who already had a fire dragon in front of him, once again released a fierce aura. This aura was actually filled with the rich power of the heavens and the earth. This power of the heavens and the earth gradually spread out. When the spectators outside the world of ice and snow sensed this aura, they were all shocked. This energy of the heavens and the earth originated from the domain of an expert from the primordial origin realm. However, it had to be treated differently because this dense energy actually contained a layer of the energy of a barrier that was related to sealing. This meant that when this power spread out in this world of ice and snow, it would not condense into a domain, but a world that was created by Long Chen. The power contained in the Heaven and Earth Fire Dragon skill was similar to Long Chen's domain power to a certain extent. However, if they were to be categorized according to strength, the power contained in the Heaven and Earth Fire Dragon skill would actually complement the domain power. As a result, when the domain power was in the process of forming the domain power, it would be able to unleash the aura of the domain power to its greatest extent. In this way, the power of heaven and earth would be able to condense into a world. Heaven and earth! Long Chen once again let out a shocking roar. This time, there was not the slightest bit of energy stored in his voice. However, the suppressive force that was produced around Long Chen made everyone present understand that once the Heaven and Earth Fire Dragon skill was formed, it would probably completely destroy the heavens and the earth. When Feng Qingyang saw this, the smug look on his face gradually disappeared. Chapter 1759. Within a radius of 10 miles, the aura that had become icy cold due to the existence of the world of ice and snow gradually recovered under the influence of the world of Fire Dragon. It was as if it had been frozen for 10,000 years. As for the world of ice and snow, it was also gradually dissipating under the absolute high temperature that had gathered around the world of Fire Dragon. The world of fire dragons grew larger and more difficult to control under the influence of the mighty fire dragon Quaking Dragon. At this moment, Long Chen's body was surrounded by a Hongmeng force. It was by relying on this Hongmeng force that Long Chen had the power to control the fire dragon. The source of this force was the world of fire dragon that Long Chen practiced. Interlocking with each other, it was because of this that Long Chen was able to display such a powerful and vast aura. Break! Long Chen's deep and powerful roar erupted once again. This time, as Long Chen's voice fell, the fire dragon's shadow in front of Long Chen, or rather, the real fire dragon, seemed to have obeyed some kind of command. It immediately trembled for a while before charging toward Feng Qingyang, who was 20 feet in front of it, with murderous intent. This attack was different from Long Chen's attacks in the past. Long Chen's ultimate move in a situation like this was indeed the fiercest and most unreserved attack that Long Chen could display at that time. However, this time, when Long Chen really pushed out the fire dragon shadow, Long Chen realized that the strongest move in the world of Fire Dragon was not to let the Fire Dragon fight with its life on the line. The fiercest move in the world of Fire Dragon was to use the world of Fire Dragon to wrap oneself and the enemy together. From there, the pressure of the Hong Meng within the world of Fire Dragon would be transferred to the enemy's body. If the enemy could not withstand the vast pressure of the Hong Meng, they would be completely crushed and annihilated by the destructive force of the world of Fire Dragon. There were two sides to everything. This world of Fire Dragon also had a fatal flaw that Long Chen did not feel at ease. If the enemy could withstand the pressure of the Hong Meng within the world of Fire Dragon, wouldn't he be able to take advantage of this opportunity to truly control the world of Fire Dragon? Long Chen's question was not without reason. However, after thinking about it, Long Chen also understood the reasoning behind it. Even if the enemy managed to take control of the heaven and earth of the flaming dragon after resisting the Hong Meng coercion like Long Chen had thought, it would seem that all his efforts would be in vain. However, if he thought about it carefully, even if the enemy managed to obtain the heaven and earth of the flaming dragon, what could he do? They could only control the world of Fire Dragon. At most, they could prevent the world of Fire Dragon from becoming hostile towards them. If the enemy wanted to activate the power of the Hong Meng within the world of Fire Dragon, it would be too difficult. The reason was that the enemy had never practiced the world of Fire Dragon before. Hence, there was no way for them to activate the power of the Hong Meng within the world of Fire Dragon. At that time, if the enemy was unwilling to give up the world of Fire Dragon that they had spent so much effort to obtain, then to a certain extent, the enemy would become a fool who had locked himself up. At that time, even if Long Chen lost a lot of effort because of this, Long Chen would still benefit from it. After all, there were too many things that Long Chen could do while the enemy was recovering the world of Fire Dragon. Sure enough, just as the mysterious Flame Dragon had said, the world of Fire Dragon could not be practiced without the Dragon Tribe's bloodline. With the power of the Dragon Tribe's bloodline, when condensing the world of Fire Dragon, one would be able to activate the greatest amount of Hong Meng pressure within the world of Fire Dragon. The possibility of the enemy being able to withstand it would become increasingly smaller. At this moment, although Long Chen did not use the most powerful technique of the world of Fire Dragon, when he thought about it carefully, the power of the Hong Meng pressure within the Fire Dragon's shadow should not be underestimated. As for whether Feng Qingyang could withstand Long Chen's attack this time, Long Chen did not have much of a chance of success. After all, no matter what, Feng Qingyang's strength was at the 8th level of the Hong Meng Yuan Jie. Even if he used all of his brute force to collide, he should be able to neutralize most of the Hong Meng force. Moreover, as the leader of the Tianfeng tribe, one of the top 10 tribes, Feng Qingyang did not have any means to protect his life under such circumstances? That was too ridiculous. Feng Qingyang had already made preparations before Long Chen released the world of Fire Dragon. However, this preparation made Long Chen smile bitterly. Feng Qingyang had a rough idea before Long Chen's world of Fire Dragon was completely condensed. He believed that when the time came, Long Chen would definitely bring the world of Fire Dragon toward him and let him resist the pressure of the world of Fire Dragon. Then, Long Chen would take advantage of the opportunity to kill him through other means. Feng Qingyang had also made preparations at the same time. It was precisely because of this that he did not condense all of the Hong Meng force around his body to defend himself. Instead, he stored some energy in his body. He wanted to wait until he had subdued the world of Fire Dragon before he could use it to defend himself against Long Chen's attack. However, what Feng Qingyang did not expect was that Long Chen's next attack would actually be like this. Rampage? At this moment, it was really hard to tell who was the smart one and who was the dumb one in such a complicated situation. By the time Feng Qingyang realized that something was wrong, it was probably too late. The Fire Dragon's shadow, wrapped in the vast Hongmeng force, rushed towards him. However, the situation of the world of Fire Dragon wrapping around him did not appear. It was likely that it would never happen again. At this time, Feng Qingyang only had a thin layer of defensive barrier around his body. Most of his Hongmeng force was still flowing in his meridians. Even if he wanted to use it now, it would be too late. Although Long Chen's move was purely a lucky hit, in the eyes of outsiders, especially those with discerning eyes, it was really too powerful. At this level, a slight mistake in a Hongmeng Yuanjie battle could really destroy the entire battle. It could even be said that it was a lifetime of hard work. If Feng Qingyang had defended himself normally and used all of his Hongmeng force to form a defensive barrier around his body, no matter how strong Long Chen's Fire Dragon's shadow was, it would definitely not have been able to break through. Chapter 1760. The ferocious Hongmeng aura came crashing down like a tidal wave. This brief moment was the most unforgettable moment in Feng Qingyang's life. No one could have imagined that Feng Qingyang, who was at the 8th level of the Hongmeng Yuanjie, would have such an awkward expression under the pure Hongmeng aura. The Hongmeng barrier in front of Feng Qingyang shattered without any hesitation the moment the Fire Dragon came into contact with it. Then, under Feng Qingyang's fearful expression, the Fire Dragon broke through Feng Qingyang's thin Hongmeng barrier like a hot knife through butter. Then, there was only about 10 feet between the Fire Dragon's shadow and Feng Qingyang. Within this 10 feet distance, there was nothing else other than the primordial chaos between heaven and earth. Boom! The sound of a violent collision suddenly resounded between heaven and earth. A wave of Hongmeng aura, which was enough to cause the entire world of ice and snow to churn, burst out in midair when the Fire Dragon and Feng Qingyang clashed. At this moment, in this world of ice and snow, everyone's gazes were focused on this point. The Fire Dragon controlled by Long Chen was like the sharpest sword in the world. In the blink of an eye, it actually pierced through Feng Qingyang's body. The Fire Dragon's roar resounded through heaven and earth. The power of Hongmeng that burst out from its body was enough to cause the entire world to tremble. This attack had most likely completely shattered Feng Qingyang's body. When the spectators outside the world of ice and snow saw this scene, they couldn't help but feel fear in their hearts. They naturally didn't know how powerful the Fire Dragon's aura was. However, when they saw the Fire Dragon, which had almost condensed into a physical entity, pass through Feng Qingyang's body, they understood one thing. In this battle, Feng Qingyang probably didn't have the strength to fight back. Vulgar! After Feng Qingyang exhausted his qi and blood, and after the Fire Dragon's aura completely passed through his body, he forcefully endured the pain that came from his heart, gritted his teeth, and shouted. Feng Qingyang's meaning couldn't be more obvious. He was unwilling to give up. When the heaven and earth of the Fire Dragon was condensed, any normal person would choose to do what Feng Qingyang had predicted. That kind of attack was more strategic and focused more on success. Naturally, Feng Qingyang would look down on Long Chen's rampage. Long Chen's display of brute force naturally caused Feng Qingyang to despise him. In Feng Qingyang's opinion, since Long Chen had the ability to condense the heaven and earth of the Fire Dragon, why did he have to be like those Hongmeng juniors at the Consolidation Realm and simply inject his Hongmeng into the pillar of qi and blast it at the enemy? However, it was this kind of attack that had completely shattered all of Feng Qingyang's defenses, causing his body to be penetrated by the Fire Dragon's aura. At this moment, Feng Qingyang's meridians were in a mess because of the destruction of the fire dragon's aura. Waves of Hong Meng's power continuously bombarded his meridians. As the master of these Hong Meng forces, Feng Qingyang was helpless at this moment. The damage to his meridians would definitely affect his future performance. Since Long Chun could condense the heaven and earth of the fire dragon, it would be easy for him to continue controlling the fire dragon's aura. Therefore, if Feng Qingyang wanted to fight back, he would have to put in more effort. In a situation where he had no choice, Feng Qingyang would even have to give up some things. For example, in order to survive, Shan Tianqi had self-destructed his domain and used his future as a bargaining chip in exchange for his life. Feng Qingyang naturally would not cut off his escape route like Shan Tianqi. He was a once-in-a-century genius in the Tianfeng tribe. Since he was young, Feng Qingyang had always attracted envious gazes no matter where he went. With his outstanding talent, penetrating comprehension, and perseverance in cultivation, Feng Qingyang had always been the most outstanding person in the Tianfeng tribe. Therefore, Feng Qingyang could not cut off his escape route. As long as there was still a glimmer of hope, the worst-case scenario would be to beg Long Chun for mercy. Feng Qingyang could not become a useless person like Shan Tianqi. He wanted to live, and he wanted to live well. This was because he had absolute confidence that as long as he was given enough time, Hong Meng Tianjing would not be able to survive. As soon as he thought of this, Feng Qingyang looked at Long Chen in the distance. His expression was no longer as arrogant as before. Vaguely, there seemed to be a layer of pleading. However, Long Chen would definitely not give Feng Qingyang a chance to live. He Song Yen was already a headache for Long Chen. If Feng Qingyang was added to the mix, Long Chen did not even dare to imagine how tortuous his future path would be. Therefore, Long Chen had made up his mind at that time. Unless he was unable to kill his future opponents, he would not allow any of them to leave alive. The current calamity was naturally caused by what Long Chen did in the inheritance hall. He did not expect Shan Tianqi to choose to self-destruct in exchange for his life. If not for Shan Tianqi's guidance, Feng Qingyang would not have been able to find him so quickly, no matter how witty he was. As he thought of this, Long Chen was curious about the background of the force that Feng Qingyang had mentioned before that wanted to take his life. What exactly was it that wanted to take his life? Ever since he entered the small spiritual realm, Long Chen had not done anything that could cause him to be hunted down, except for some disputes over spiritual treasures. The only time that Long Chen was most worthy of being hunted down was when Long Chen eavesdropped on a conversation between two people after he had successfully passed through the world of ice and snow. After that, he was chased by the two people. However, at that time, the two people naturally did not know of his origin. If the two of them gave Feng Qingyang an order, it would be quite funny. However, when he thought about it, Long Chen still couldn't figure out what those two people were talking about back then. What exactly were they talking about? How many more secrets were there in the small spiritual realm? Now, Long Chen had already figured out the secrets of the spiritual realm remains. After all, with the explanation of the mysterious flame dragon, Long Chen knew a little more. However, there were still some important parts. Perhaps only when Long Chen went to the extreme north of the small spiritual realm and discovered the battlefield of the great battle of the spiritual realm could Long Chen get what he wanted. Chapter 1761. Long Chen felt helpless as he looked at Feng Qingyang, who no longer had any tricks up his sleeve. He Song Yen and Shan Tianqi had given Long Chen too much trouble. It was no wonder that Long Chen was so heartless. He Song Yen and Shan Tianqi had given Long Chen too much trouble. If he did not get rid of Feng Qingyang, Long Chen would be in even greater trouble in the future. After making up his mind, Long Chen did not hesitate any longer. Some things had to be done cleanly. Long Chen controlled the fire dragon's shadow from afar. The moment the fire dragon's shadow pierced through the air, it immediately made a circle in the air. The powerful Hong Meng pressure once again swept out. At the same time, Long Chun began to activate the Hong Meng around his body. The dragon halberd in his hand appeared once again, and the sun behind him gradually revealed itself. Long Chun, whose body was completely covered in red scales, held the dragon halberd in his hand and charged towards Feng Qingyang in the distance after a short moment of Hong Meng power gathering. The fire dragon illusory figure, which had completely turned its head, also took advantage of this opportunity to unleash the intense primordial pressure that it possessed. Like a storm, a pressure that seemed to cover the sky and cover the land, surged forward. "Good boy, you're ruthless." Feng Qingyang was furious as he looked at Long Chun, who no longer showed any mercy after gaining control of the situation. However, at this moment, Feng Qingyang would probably be killed by Long Chun if he did not have a complete countermeasure. Feng Qingyang had overestimated Long Chun in the previous attack, which had resulted in him falling into such an embarrassing situation. This time around, even though he had sustained injuries that could not be ignored, since Long Chun had already revealed his intention to kill him, Feng Qingyang had no reason to hide anything. The current situation was that if he did not take out his life-saving measures, he might really lose his life. However, for Feng Qingyang, since he was young, Feng Qingyang had always focused on attacking regardless of whether he was sparring with his peers or his elders in the Tianfeng tribe. Although he had some understanding of defensive measures, Feng Qingyang had never used them. This was mainly because in Feng Qingyang's battles with others, Feng Qingyang was always the attacker. Therefore, at this moment, Feng Qingyang made a bold decision. As long as he avoided the attack of the fire dragon behind him, it was equivalent to not having to worry about anything behind him. After all, when he had miscalculated and suffered from Long Chen's attack, Long Chen's two companions had already determined that his strength was inferior to Long Chen's. Therefore, at this time, if he suddenly burst out with a momentum that dared to attack Long Chun, it might really be unexpected under certain circumstances. From Feng Qingyang's point of view, Long Chen's decision to abandon the rapping attack of the world of the fire dragon and switch to a brute force attack was really a surprise move. How could Feng Qingyang know that Long Chun had only a smattering of knowledge about the heaven and earth flame dragon skill? After launching the flame dragon, Long Chun realized the importance of this matter and the attack method that Feng Qingyang had thought of. As the saying goes, there is no story without coincidences. It was precisely because of Long Chen's hindsight that he had succeeded in creating the current situation. Since he had made up his mind, Feng Qingyang became bolder. After all, in his opinion, as long as Long Chun did not use the rapping attack method that he had expected, even if Feng Qingyang let the fire dragon hit his body again, his life would not be in danger. It was precisely because of this that Feng Qingyang dared to make this decision. If he succeeded, he would be able to completely turn the situation around. If he failed, he would no longer have any chance of survival. After so many years of cultivation, Feng Qingyang knew that at this moment, if he took a gamble, he would be able to change everything. The Hong Meng power around Feng Qingyang's body exploded rapidly. This was the Hong Meng power that he had hidden in his body to prevent Long Chun from using the rapping attack method. At this time, he had summoned about 60 to 70% of the Hong Meng power. The rest was to be completely destroyed when the fire dragon hit his body. However, this did not matter. In Feng Qingyang's opinion, even if he did not have enough Hong Meng power, the pressure contained in his move was still stronger than the Hong Meng power contained in Long Chen's charging figure. This was the confidence that came from the strength of his realm. In this aspect, Feng Qingyang had always had this kind of confidence. When the Hong Meng power around Feng Qingyang finished condensing, Long Chen's figure also arrived as scheduled. The fire dragon around Feng Qingyang was ready to move. In order to prevent any accidents from happening, Feng Qingyang unwillingly focused some of his attention on the fire dragon's shadow. After all, No matter what, the power contained in the fire dragon's shadow could indeed cause harm to him. When Long Chen's dragon halberd was about to pierce down, the biting cold Hong Meng power had already bombarded Feng Qingyang's body. However, Feng Qingyang was not the slightest bit afraid. After all, he was at the 8th level of the Hong Meng Yuan Jie. The moment the dragon halberd was about to pierce through Feng Qingyang's body, he suddenly leaped up. At the same time, the Hong Meng power around him also burst out rapidly. Waves of biting cold Hong Meng wind whistled out from Feng Qingyang's body. The wind gathered together, and before it could fully emit the power that made one's heart tremble, it directly dispersed towards the charging Long Chen. Seeing Feng Qingyang's action, Long Chen was also shocked. He never expected that Feng Qingyang would still dare to attack under such circumstances. Did Feng Qingyang really think that the fire dragon shadow behind him was just a joke that Long Chen was playing? Even so, Long Chen did not need to use too much strength. As long as he could block Feng Qingyang's desperate counterattack, no matter how the fire dragon's shadow behind Feng Qingyang pierced through Feng Qingyang's body, Long Chen would be able to destroy most of Hong Meng. At that time, Long Chen would be able to kill Feng Qingyang no matter what method he used. However, things were still a little unexpected. When Long Chen was closer to Feng Qingyang, he realized that Feng Qingyang's Hong Meng wind attack was actually very strong. At this time, the one who was slightly worried was Long Chen. In his opinion, it would not be easy to block Feng Qingyang's desperate counterattack. After all, Feng Qingyang was at the 8th level of the Hong Meng Yuan Jie. The Hong Meng power contained in his attack was definitely not something that Long Chen, who was at the 1st level of the Hong Meng Yuan Jie, could compare to. Chapter 1762. However, things often developed beyond one's expectations. Don't worry about it. Just as Feng Qingyang steeled his heart to fight to the death with Long Chen, the fire dragon shadow that had been hovering behind Feng Qingyang and was being monitored by the Hong Meng mind that Feng Qingyang had released all this while had actually touched his body without him noticing at all. This kind of thing was too bizarre and inconceivable. When Feng Qingyang sensed this change, his originally complacent state of mind immediately withered. At this moment, it was meaningless to think about how the fire dragon's shadow managed to avoid Hong Meng's detection. What Feng Qingyang had to face next was whether he could withstand Long Chen's terrifying attack after the fire dragon's shadow penetrated his body again. Long Chen seized this opportunity and immediately circulated all the scarlet flames in his body. The mysterious dragon sacred flames technique began to surge along with the power of Hong Meng. With a boom, a vigorous flame spurted out from Long Chen's mouth. At this moment, the heavenly dragon bloodline within Long Chen's body was being utilized to the greatest extent by Long Chen. The power of the heavenly dragon bloodline was able to suppress the damage caused by the mysterious dragon sacred flame to his body, preventing the extremely high temperature of the brilliant sun's scarlet flame from affecting Long Chen's body during its transformation into the mysterious dragon sacred flame. Just like last time, the fire dragon phantom successfully entered Feng Qingyang's body from behind. In just a moment, it penetrated all the meridians in Feng Qingyang's body and destroyed half of the Hong Meng power around him. At the same time, the mysterious dragon sacred flame that Long Chen had spewed out also swept over. The scorching Hong Meng qi that wrapped around it caused Feng Qingyang's originally ugly expression to become even worse. This time, Feng Qingyang had no way to deal with it. Long Chen clearly understood that even though he seemed to have obtained a great advantage at this moment, if he wanted to kill Feng Qingyang in this battle, he still needed Long Chen to continuously attack. After all, Feng Qingyang's life-saving methods were likely to be earth-shattering. Long Chen once again spewed out a stream of mysterious dragon sacred flame. A frightening force instantly erupted between heaven and earth. Following that, a heavy sound of a nightmare breaking rang out. Feng Qingyang's figure had no choice but to retreat several feet under the force of this force. Since Long Chen had gained the upper hand, he had no intention of letting anyone off, and immediately he released the Hong Meng Qi around him. Before Feng Qingyang had time to defend himself, even though he was in such a desperate situation, Feng Qingyang still snorted coldly, revealing an extremely unwilling expression. In Feng Qingyang's opinion, in this battle between him and Long Chen's every time he gained the upper hand was due to great luck. It basically had nothing to do with his own strength. The first time, he relied on his domain to successfully resist Feng Qingyang's strongest attack. The second time, he changed his attack method too unexpectedly. Now, he was actually able to control the fire dragon phantom that was being constantly monitored while he himself was on fire. From there, he carried out a perfect sneak attack. 3 mistakes, or rather, 3 heaven-sent blessings from Long Chen, had completely changed the direction of this battle. What was laughable was that Feng Qingyang, an 8th-tier Hong Meng Yuanjie expert, was actually defeated by Long Chen, a 1st-tier Hong Meng Yuanjie expert. If this matter was spread out in the future, the Tianfeng tribe's reputation would probably be completely destroyed. Because of this matter, the organization would naturally have serious doubts about the strength of the Tianfeng tribe. When the time came, if the organization's plan was successful, Feng Qingyang really would not be able to do what he had planned before. His rash and hasty actions today without communicating with the tribe would even affect his hopes of being promoted to the Tianfeng tribe's chief in the future. In short, Feng Qingyang really suffered a great loss this time. At this time, Feng Qingyang did not consider these things because Long Chen was really too domineering at this time. He was not showing any mercy. Feng Qingyang's figure retreated 10 steps. Long Chen relied on the Hong Meng pressure in his body to suppress Feng Qingyang for 10 steps. He directly made it clear that he did not want to give Feng Qingyang any chance to breathe. At this time, Feng Qingyang's body did not have enough Hong Meng power to resist Long Chen's continuous attack. When Long Chen's expression changed slightly, Feng Qingyang felt a heartfelt fear from the bottom of his heart. The moment the raging flames spewed out of Long Chen's mouth left his mouth, they condensed into flaming pillars. They did not give Feng Qingyang any time to react and heavily hit Feng Qingyang's body. Clang! The power of the Hong Meng explosion resounded through the sky. After this attack, most of the remaining Hong Meng power around Feng Qingyang's body was used to counteract the Hong Meng power in the flaming pillars. However, the result was obvious. The flaming pillars contained too much suppressive power. Even if Feng Qingyang exhausted all the Hong Meng power in his body, he still could not change the fact that he was seriously injured by the flaming pillars. Feng Qingyang violently spat out a mouthful of blood. His face instantly became as pale as a sheet of paper. His entire body was also directly sent flying by the violent impact. Seeing that Feng Qingyang's body was about to fall to the ground, Long Chen's expression finally relaxed a little. His previously tense state of mind also finally relaxed a little. The onlookers may not know the true extent of Feng Qingyang's injuries, but as the one who attacked, Long Chen could not be any more clear. The fire dragon phantasm, wrapped in the power of the Hong Meng heaven and earth, forcibly swam around Feng Qingyang's body twice. This temporarily destroyed nearly 70% of the Hong Meng power around Feng Qingyang's body. The mysterious dragon sacred flame that Long Chen had unleashed had also pushed the remaining Hong Meng power around Feng Qingyang's body to the limit, causing him to have no choice but to circulate the Hong Meng around his body. Chapter 1763. Hesitation, page 1/1. When Long Chen saw that Shan Tianqi had disappeared, he naturally knew what Shan Tianqi was thinking. Now that their biggest backer, the Tianfeng tribe, had been defeated by Long Chen, how could they have the strength to protect themselves? Long Chen also knew that it was Shan Tianqi who had attracted the Tianfeng tribe. Naturally, he would not let himself go. At this time, Shan Tianqi no longer had the ultimate life-saving technique of a Hong Meng Yuan Jie expert. Therefore, at this time, Long Chen did not dare to kill those people from the Tianfeng tribe. However, he really dared to kill Shan Tianqi. Therefore, when Shan Tianqi realized this problem, he ran away like a wisp of smoke. In an instant, he had completely disappeared in this world of ice and snow. However, how could Long Chen let such an opponent go so easily? Long Chen quickly turned to look at Long Mu, who had been guarding beside him. After a slight smile, Long Mu understood and immediately ran away. Long Mu's figure also disappeared in the air of this world of ice and snow. When the crowd saw the dozen Hong Meng Yuan Jie experts who had gathered in this world of ice and snow bow their heads together, they completely reacted. Long Chen had actually defeated the Tianfeng tribe. At the beginning of this battle, those who dared to predict this result were naturally very excited. This scene had come true. Didn't this mean that Long Chen's strength had far surpassed the 10 major tribes? Although the outcome was unexpected, since it had already happened, there was no possibility of reversing it. In the future, in this small spiritual world, who would be able to be Long Chen's opponent? Although Long Chen had continuously made a name for himself since entering the small spiritual world, today's battle had finally pushed Long Chen to a new peak. Long Chen's name was enough for everyone in this small spiritual world to be familiar with. In the world of ice and snow, after Long Chen withdrew the heaven and earth of the fire dragon and the brilliant sun's scarlet flames, the temperature gradually returned to the severe cold. The whistling cold wind once again swept in wave after wave. Long Chen changed his clothes and looked at Feng Qingyang, who had an extremely gloomy expression on his face. Long Chen no longer had the slightest bit of fear. The current situation was that Long Chen still had the absolute initiative. At this time, Long Chen could consider whether to kill them all, but these people of the Tianfeng tribe could only act according to Long Chen's ideas. If these people of the Tianfeng tribe still did not admit defeat and were still anxious to fight to the death, then Long Chen would not hesitate to destroy his clothes and take advantage of this opportunity to completely destroy this idea in their hearts. If it were other people, perhaps they would really be afraid of the Tianfeng tribe, as one of the 10 major tribes. After all, everyone knew that this kind of tribe's foundation was really unimaginable. If they wanted to fight with people with spiritual treasures or secret techniques, people would really not be able to cope with it. However, if it were Long Chen facing the people of the Tianfeng tribe, it would be a completely different situation. Long Chen was not the slightest bit afraid that these people had life-saving methods, and he did not care how they would use these methods. Since Long Chen could defeat them once, then, there would be a second time. In terms of methods, Long Chen had not fully used the wrapping power of the heaven and earth of the flaming dragon. In other words, Long Chen still had some confidence in the current situation. However, the Tianfeng tribe had more to consider. Some of them did have some secret techniques, but they were facing a person who could defeat Feng Qingyang and a seemingly suicidal Long Yuan. Even if the secret techniques in their hands could give them temporary absolute power, who could really be sure that Long Chen and Long Yuan also had such secret techniques in their hands? Not to mention Long Chen, there was Long Mu beside Long Mu, who had not made a move during the whole process. Although they did not know why she had disappeared silently now, if they did not know when she would appear again, this was another matter that needed to be thoroughly considered. After much consideration, everyone in the Tianfeng tribe finally came to a unanimous decision to give up on using their secret technique. This was because they also knew that Long Chen could only defeat them. If he wanted to kill them, they dared to go all out. The most dangerous thing would be if more than a dozen Hong Meng Yuan experts from the Tianfeng tribe self-destructed their domains together. In the periphery of this world of ice and snow, 3 figures looked at Long Chen in midair and sighed in their hearts. If Long Chen was here, he would naturally recognize that these three people were from the Tianlong tribe. They were Long Aotian, Long Yen, and Long Ping, who had a good relationship with Long Chen. The three of them were able to come to this world of ice and snow because of Long Chen's generosity. Otherwise, they would have been killed by that group of people from the large tribes. Not to mention, the three of them were able to rely on the inheritance that they had obtained that day to successfully advance to several realms. I really did not expect Long Chen to become so powerful. When I first met him, his strength was far below mine. Now, he has become a Hong Meng Yuan Jia expert. Life is unpredictable. Long Yan's expression was yearning, and his words were filled with emotion. Long Ping laughed out loud and said, "Comparing yourself to others will only make you angry. Brother Long Chen has a great opportunity. People like us are destined to be passers-by. Now we are already very lucky to have met Long Chen. However, no matter what, we have gained a lot from this trip to the small spiritual world. Although it is not as good as Long Chen's, it is still good enough." Long Outyen looked at Long Chen in the sky and did not say a word. Long Yen nodded and said, all right. Now we can't disturb Long Chen anymore. He and we are destined to be people from two different worlds. Speaking of which, we should also plan the next step of our plan. There are less than 2 months left before the small spiritual world's exit opens. Long Ping said, let's go. After leaving this spiritual world remains, the news for the past few days has been about the ancient battlefield in the extreme north. It is time for us to take a look. As Long Ping spoke, he took a few steps in the other direction. From time to time, he would turn around to look at Long Chen in midair. He was very curious. With Long Chen's strength, what kind of person would he become in this small spiritual world, or rather in the extreme north of Hongmeng? He hoped that there would be opportunities that belonged to the three of them in the ancient battlefield. Chapter 1764. When this scene unfolded in front of the spectators outside the world of ice and snow, none of them made a sound. Previously, no matter what the situation was, although the word shock was written on these people's faces, it was impossible for them to remain silent. Naturally, they had to express the reason for their shock and their views on the battle. Even if no one was listening, it was still a lively and inciting speech. Now there was almost no shock on everyone's faces. However, everyone's expression remained the same as before. They seemed to be in a daze. This situation continued until Feng Qingyang's body completely fell onto the ground that seemed to have been melted by the fire. When blood flowed and turned the snow around Feng Qingyang into a blood-red color, the expressions of the spectators eased slightly. The one who had the strongest reaction to this scene was Shan Tianqi, who had been silently guarding Feng Qingyang since the beginning of the battle. During the battle, regardless of how Feng Qingyang was ravaged by Long Chen, Shan Tianqi had always had confidence in Feng Qingyang. Just like how Feng Qingyang had always had confidence in himself before every battle. However, the outcome of this matter was really beyond his expectations. Shan Tianqi, who had always been on good terms with the Tianfeng tribe, naturally understood Feng Qingyang's true strength. Long before the small spiritual world had opened, Shan Tianqi had witnessed Feng Qingyang's strength. That time, during the martial arts competition of the Tianfeng tribe, as a mountain tribe on good terms with the Tianjin tribe, Shan Tianqi was fortunate enough to witness the battle between Feng Qingyang and another expert from the Tianfeng tribe. At that time, both sides used intricate Hongmeng techniques one after another. It was a good show. In the end, Feng Qingyang won. Although it was a difficult victory, that battle had completely established Feng Qingyang's brand of invincibility in Shan Tianqi's heart. Today, Shan Tianqi had seen Feng Qingyang use the techniques that Feng Qingyang had used. As for the reason, Shan Tianqi had never been able to figure it out. However, based on the current situation, Shan Tianqi did not need to figure it out. After all, no matter what, Feng Qingyang had really lost. Shan Tianqi trembled slightly as he looked at Long Chen, who was in midair. The Hong Meng around him was slightly unstable. Shan Tianqi remembered very clearly that back in the inheritance hall, Long Chen was only at the 9th level of the Hong Meng consolidation realm. Other than the magical 9 ice dragons that seemed to condense into solid entities, he was just a guy with some strength who was lucky. At that time, when Long Chen was dealing with the Hong Meng Yuanjie, an expert like Shan Tianqi had to have a disciple blocking in front of him to buy time for him to summon the Ice Ghost Wolf and start the battle. However, in the short span of half a month, not only did Long Chen break through the Hong Meng Yuanjie realm, but even his attacking methods had become all sorts of exquisite. Shan Tianqi was not ignorant. At least he had a discerning eye. Naturally, he could see that in the battle between Long Chen and Feng Qingyang, Long Chen had relied on his layered attacking methods to catch Feng Qingyang off guard. However, what puzzled Shan Tianqi was how bizarre Long Chen's methods were. How could they be able to catch Feng Qingyang off guard? From Shan Tianqi's perspective, Long Chen's methods were only the most basic of battle technique. If Shan Tianqi still had his realm, he would probably be able to fight against Long Chen. However, why was Feng Qingyang unable to deal with it? Moreover, not only was he unable to deal with it, but under Long Chen's attacks, Feng Qingyang seemed to have completely lost his mind. He could only act like a Hong Meng chaotic prime and defend himself with whatever came his way. He did not know any strategy at all. Wasn't strategy what the experts of the Hong Meng Yuanjie were best at? At this moment, after Long Chen had completely calmed down the restless Hong Meng people around him, he put away the glorious sun. Long Chen regained some consciousness and looked at the place where Feng Qingyang had landed. Feng Qingyang had already been helped up by the people of the Tianfeng tribe, who had slightly recovered from their injuries. Feng Qingyang did not faint as Long Chen had expected. However, it seemed like Feng Qingyang really did look like a living corpse. Long Chen looked down from above. This time, he had no intention of killing Feng Qingyang. This was because Long Chen understood that even a Hong Meng chaotic prime could easily kill Feng Qingyang now. Long Chen was worried that since Feng Qingyang was still conscious, if Long Chen attacked again, these experts of the Tianfeng tribe would join forces and detonate their realms together. Just like Shan Tianqi, they would completely drag Long Chen down with them, even if it meant risking their own futures. If that really happened, Long Chen's gains would not make up for the losses. Therefore, at this moment, even though Long Chen had won a great victory, he still had to maintain a trace of fear. As for whether he should kill all the people of the Tianfeng tribe, it still needed to be considered. After all, the Hong Meng Yuanjie was not as straightforward as the Hong Meng chaotic primes of the consolidation realm. With the realms as an excellent protective talisman, no one dared to go all out. Are you convinced of your loss? Long Chen looked at the dozen people of the Tianfeng tribe who were gradually gathering below him and asked in a clear voice. Hearing this, Feng Qingyang, whose face was as pale as paper, immediately clenched his fist. Some Hong Meng fluctuations actually appeared around him. However, Feng Qingyang's movements were quickly stopped by the other people of the Tianfeng tribe. Every one of them looked dispirited and did not say much. However, everyone's expressions were shrouded in a strong sense of unwillingness. Indeed, this was how it should be. Long Chen defeated Feng Qingyang mostly by luck. Long Yuan defeated these people of the Tianfeng tribe by relying on their arrogance and underestimation of the enemy. If they were given another chance at this very moment, it was likely that the outcome of this battle would be completely different. However, Long Chen knew very well that this was impossible. After a series of sighs, the people of the Tianfeng tribe lowered their heads one by one. At the same time, Shan Tianqi, who was in midair, suddenly disappeared without a trace. Chapter 1765. When Long Chen saw that Shan Tianqi had disappeared, he naturally knew what Shan Tianqi was thinking. Now that their biggest backer, the Tianfeng tribe, had been defeated by Long Chen, how could they have the strength to protect themselves? Long Chen also knew that it was Shan Tianqi who had attracted the Tianfeng tribe. Naturally, he would not let himself go. At this time, Shan Tianqi no longer had the ultimate life-saving technique of a Hong Meng Yuan Jie expert. Therefore, at this time, Long Chen did not dare to kill those people from the Tianfeng tribe, but he really dared to kill Shan Tianqi. Therefore, when Shan Tianqi realized this problem, he ran away like a wisp of smoke. In an instant, he completely disappeared in this world of ice and snow. However, how could Long Chen let such an opponent go so easily? Long Chen quickly turned to look at Long Mu, who had been guarding by his side. After a slight smile, Long Mu understood and immediately ran away. Long Mu's figure also disappeared in the air of this world of ice and snow. When the crowd saw the dozens of Hong Meng Yuan Jie experts who had gathered in this world of ice and snow bow their heads together, they completely reacted. Long Chen had actually defeated the Tianfeng tribe. At the beginning of this battle, those who dared to expect this result were naturally very excited. This scene had come true. Didn't this mean that Long Chen's strength had far surpassed the 10 major tribes? Although the outcome was unexpected, since it had already happened, there was no way to reverse it. In the future, in this small spiritual world, who could be Long Chen's opponent? Although Long Chen had continuously made a name for himself since he entered the small spiritual world, today's battle had finally pushed Long Chen to a new peak. Everyone in this small spiritual world was familiar with Long Chen's name. In the world of ice and snow, after Long Chen withdrew the heaven and earth of the fire dragon and the brilliant sun flames, the temperature gradually returned to the severe cold. The whistling cold wind swept over again. Long Chen changed his clothes and looked at Feng Qingyang, who had an extremely gloomy expression on his face. Long Chen no longer had a trace of fear in his heart. The current situation was that Long Chen still had the absolute initiative. Long Chen could consider whether to kill them all at this time, but these people of the Tianfeng tribe could only act according to Long Chen's ideas. If these people of the Tianfeng tribe still did not admit defeat and were still anxious to fight to the death, then Long Chen would not hesitate to destroy his clothes and take advantage of this opportunity to completely destroy this idea in their hearts. If it were other people, perhaps they would really be afraid of the Tianfeng tribe as one of the 10 major tribes. After all, everyone knew that this kind of tribe's foundation was really unimaginable. If they wanted to fight with people with spiritual treasures or secret techniques, people would not be able to cope with it. However, if it were Long Chen facing the people of the Tianfeng tribe, it would be a completely different situation. Long Chen was not afraid that these people had life-saving methods, and he did not care how they would use them. Since Long Chen could defeat them once, there would be a second time. In terms of methods, Long Chen had not fully used the wrapping power of the heaven and earth of the flame dragon. In other words, Long Chen still had some confidence in the current situation. The Tianfeng tribe had more to consider. Some of them did have some secret techniques, but they were facing a person who could defeat Feng Qingyang and Long Yuan, who seemed to have no regard for his life. Even if the secret techniques in their hands could give them temporary absolute power, who could really be sure that Long Chen and Long Yuan did not have such secret techniques in their hands? Not to mention that there was still Long Chen beside Long Mu, who had not made a move during the whole process. Although they did not know why he had disappeared silently, they did not know when he would appear again. This was another matter that needed to be thoroughly considered. After much consideration, everyone in the Tianfeng tribe finally came to a unanimous decision to give up on using their secret technique. This was because they also knew that Long Chen could only defeat them. If he wanted to kill them, they dared to go all out. The most dangerous thing would be if more than a dozen Hong Meng Yuan experts from the Tianfeng tribe self-destructed their domains at the same time. In the periphery of this world of ice and snow, 3 figures looked at Long Chen in mid-air and sighed from the bottom of their hearts. If Long Chen was here, he would naturally recognize that these 3 people were from the Tianlong tribe. They were Long Aotian, Long Yen, and Long Ping, who had a good relationship with Long Chen. The 3 of them had been able to come to this world of ice and snow because of Long Chen's generosity. Otherwise, they would have been killed by that group of people from the large tribes. Not to mention, the 3 of them were able to rely on the inheritance that they had received that day to successfully advance to several realms. I really did not expect Long Chen to become so powerful. When I first met him, his strength was far below mine. Now, he has become a Hong Meng Yuan Jia expert. Life is unpredictable. Long Yan's expression was yearning, and his words were filled with emotion. Long Ping laughed out loud and said, "Comparing yourself to others will only make you angry. Brother Long Chen has a great opportunity. People like us are destined to be passers-by. Now we are already very lucky to have met Long Chen. However, no matter what, we have gained a lot from this trip to the small spiritual world. Although it is not as good as Long Chen's, it is still something that we can take out." Long Outyen looked up at Long Chen in the sky and did not say a word. Long Yen nodded and said, all right. Now we can't disturb Long Chen anymore. He and we are destined to be people from 2 different worlds. Speaking of which, we should also plan the next step of our plan. There are less than 2 months left before the small spiritual world's exit opens. Long Ping said, let's go. After leaving this spiritual world remains, the news these few days has been about the ancient battlefield in the extreme north. It is time for us to take a look. As Long Ping spoke, he took a few steps in the other direction. From time to time, he would turn around to look at Long Chen in the sky. He was very curious. With Long Chen's strength, what kind of person would he become in this small spiritual world, or rather in the extreme north of Hong Meng? Hopefully, there would be opportunities that belonged to the 3 of them in the ancient battlefield. Chapter 1766. After both sides gradually calmed down and acknowledged the result of the battle, they flew towards Long Chen joyfully. At this time, Long Yuan looked like he couldn't exert any strength. Obviously, in the previous battle, Long Yuan also exerted a lot of strength. He must have suffered some internal injuries because of the backlash. Is it serious? Long Chen asked worriedly. Long Yuan smiled and shook his head, saying, it's fine. Even if there are 10 more of them, I can still beat them to a pulp. Long Chen laughed and said, it's because we're lucky that we're in this situation. Don't let the people below hear this. It seems like they're not convinced. If they're dissatisfied, it'll be troublesome if they're driven to desperation. Long Yuan nodded and said, I'll listen to Master. At this time, in the depths of the ice and snow, Long Mu's figure slowly emerged. After seeing Long Chen from afar, he casually nodded at Long Chen, probably conveying that the Shan Tianqi had been dealt with. When Long Mu came closer, Long Chen asked suspiciously, so fast? Long Mu coldly snorted and shook his head, saying, a pitiful guy who didn't even have a domain and only cared about escaping. In 2 moves, he was completely destroyed. Long Chen looked at Long Mu's calm appearance and naturally felt comforted. No matter what, now that the Shan Tianqi had been dealt with, the Shan Tianqi might not do anything to Long Chen in the future. However, since they were cutting the weeds, it was safest to remove the root. At this moment, Long Chen was hesitating whether to cut the weeds of the Tianfeng tribe. It wasn't that Long Chen didn't want to do it, but he was afraid that the Tianfeng tribe would be driven to desperation. When Long Yuan and Long Mu both came to Long Chen's side, Long Chen also had great confidence at this time. Faintly, an aura that belonged to them spread in the air. Everyone inside and outside the ice and snow felt this aura and no longer dared to underestimate these three people. When Feng Qingyang felt this aura, his expression immediately changed. When Feng Qingyang saw his tribesmen looking at the three people in the air with fear, Feng Qingyang also completely gave up at this time. Unless Long Chen wanted to take a step forward, the Heavenly Wind tribe would continue to live in such an undignified manner. Thinking back to the previous fight, Feng Qingyang's heart was filled with regret. After asking around, he finally confirmed that Long Chen's 9 ice dragons contained the power of the Ice Soul origin. Therefore, Feng Qingyang made his move early and destroyed Long Chen's 9 ice dragons when Long Chen was not paying attention. At that time, Feng Qingyang, who originally thought that this battle was in the bag, unconsciously became arrogant due to this kind of emotion. However, this wasn't the most important point. The most important point in the early stages of this battle was that Long Chen had relied on his own domain, a domain at the first level of the primordial origin realm, to dodge Feng Qingyang's killing move. Perhaps the outcome of this battle had already been decided at that time. The heavens are blind, Feng Qingyang sighed as he cursed the damned heavens in his heart. Why did they give Long Chen such a fortuitous encounter? If he had known this would happen, Feng Qingyang would definitely not have accepted the mission from that organization. Even if he had accepted it, he would have asked for a few elders from the organization to oversee the situation. Only then could he completely prevent this kind of situation from happening. You have indeed won. We accept our loss wholeheartedly. Feng Qingyang knew that staying silent like this would not solve the current problem. If he wanted to save the lives of these people, he naturally had to greet Long Chen, who was currently in the limelight. Hearing this, Long Chen felt a wave of warmth in his heart. To be able to receive such recognition from an expert of the Hong Meng Yuan Jie was a kind of freedom. Since we have lost, there are some things that we have to deal with, Long Chen said slowly. Feng Qingyang naturally understood Long Chen's meaning. He could only blame himself for being too arrogant and revealing information about the organization to Long Chen. It should be known that the existence of this organization could be regarded as the most confidential place in the small spiritual world. He had spent a lot of effort to discover this organization and obtain the mission from this organization to kill Long Chen. As for why they wanted to kill Long Chen, although Feng Qingyang could guess it, Feng Qingyang did not dare to say it at this time. Feng Qingyang was not afraid of Long Chen. Feng Qingyang was afraid of his clansmen. The reason for wanting to kill Long Chen was so absurd that even Feng Qingyang was a little conflicted. Moreover, Feng Qingyang chose to contact the organization because he did not communicate with his clansmen before. Now, these clansmen were only acting according to his orders. If these clansmen knew about Feng Qingyang's current choice, they would probably betray him on the spot. This matter required long-term planning. Now was not the time to speak about it. The only thing he could do now was to fabricate a reason that Long Chen would believe to prevent this from happening. Feng Qingyang stood up and said, "Do you want to know why we came back to find you? In fact, there's no harm in telling you. However, you may have to comprehend the reason yourself." "Tell me." Long Chen was also a little curious. He thought about it carefully. Was the Tianfeng tribe really coveting him because he had obtained the inheritance of the Xianyan tribe? After all, the Tianfeng tribe's foundation was much stronger than the Xianyan tribe's. Feng Qingyang said, "The inheritance you obtained in the Xianyan tribe is naturally not worthy of my nostalgia. However, when you obtained the inheritance, did you know something else? You should know that the small spiritual world used to open every 1,200 years. Now that it has opened 400 years earlier, how did it open? What's the secret behind it? Why did so many spiritual treasure opportunities appear in the small spiritual world one after another this time? The spiritual world relic and the ancient battlefield. These events that had been sealed for nearly 10,000 years resurfaced in front of everyone again. Do you know that what those people on the ancient battlefield want to know the most now is why the small spiritual world has undergone such a change? The inheritance of the Xianyan tribe must contain the history of the small spiritual world. Long Chun, ask yourself honestly, did you not know when you obtained the inheritance? Chapter 1767. After listening to Feng Qingyang's words, Long Chen smiled and nodded. He doubtfully believed Feng Qingyang's words for the time being. However, Long Chen could faintly sense that Feng Qingyang had come looking for him for an even bigger reason. However, at this moment, Feng Qingyang was actually willing to die just like this and was unwilling to say anything. But then again, since things had come to this, the people of the Tianfeng tribe had already admitted defeat. In addition, there were so many onlookers outside the ice and snow. If Long Chen planned to pursue the victory at this time, it would cause the Tianfeng tribe to fight back desperately. That would not be good. The gap in strength was too big, and the disadvantage in numbers was too obvious. At this time, it became a hindrance for Long Chen to eliminate the root of the problem. However, Long Chen also thought that since he could not do it perfectly today, after all, Long Chen would have to leave the spiritual world ruins. If the people of the Tianfeng tribe really wanted the inheritance of the Xianyan tribe that Long Chen had obtained, this small spiritual world was vast, and they could search for it. Long Chen could just hide. You're quite well informed. I just heard some rumors about this small spiritual world by chance. You didn't even enter the ruins of the tribe, but you know everything? Since things had come to this, Long Chen could only play dumb with Feng Qingyang. When Feng Qingyang heard this, he immediately put down the stone in his heart. Naturally, he let out a long breath and praised himself for being quick-witted and quick-witted. Of course, every time the small spiritual world opens, the reason why we come in is to investigate the truth of what happened 10,000 years ago. Now that you know about it, the other 10 tribes will certainly come. Long Chen, it's easy for you to defeat the Tianfeng tribe today, but it's hard to say for the other 10 tribes. Moreover, if the people of the Red Sun tribe see that you're practicing their unique cultivation method, the Brilliant Sun, when you fight with them, it will be a different scene, Feng Qingyang said with a smile. There's no need for the Tianfeng tribe to worry about me. After all, you did lose to me. Long Chen was displeased. When he thought of Feng Qingyang's repeated provocations, he felt a little uncomfortable. Feng Qingyang quickly shook his head and said, "Of course. A loss is a loss. My Tianfeng tribe's skills are not as good as yours. There's no harm in admitting it. Even so, you've already admitted defeat. You'd better leave quickly. I hope that we won't meet again in the future. Farewell," Long Chen said with some reluctance. Then, he looked at the Tianfeng tribe in the ice and snow. When the members of the Heavenly Wind tribe heard these words, their expressions immediately relaxed. After Feng Qingyang made up his mind, he quickly led the dozen or so people and left in a grandiose manner, trying not to embarrass himself as much as possible. From the beginning of their arrival in such a grandiose manner, to the moment when they left in such a hurry and desolate manner, the source of all this was Long Chen. As the people of the Tianfeng tribe left, the bystanders on the periphery of the ice and snow gradually lost interest. Even if some people wanted to see where Long Chen would go next, it had nothing to do with the battle. However, when some people left, they looked at the figure in the air, and couldn't help but shake their head. They muttered, "I hope that you won't be my enemy. If we meet again in the future, you won't be so lucky." As soon as he finished speaking, the figure disappeared without a trace in the blink of an eye. Between heaven and earth, only the whistling cold wind in the ice and snow was left. When the people gradually left, Long Chen finally let out a long breath. He said, "We're finally done with our work. This time, no matter how you look at it, can be considered the most satisfying battle we've had since we entered this small spiritual world? Long Mu chuckled and said, "You're really happy to think about it. Don't you know that after this battle, your name will be known throughout the entire small spiritual world? At that time, if there are really some things that cannot be known in this small spiritual world, you must make your choice at that time. Otherwise, I'm afraid that many people will come back to find trouble with you." Long Chen waved his hand with an indifferent expression. He said, "Well, there's no need to worry about this for now." However, from Feng Qingyang's words, perhaps there really are some things that cannot be known in this small spiritual world. However, these things have nothing to do with me. The most important thing for us now is to revive the Longmeng polar region. The first step to this is to find my 2 lost disciples. When he spoke up to here, Long Chen couldn't help but feel slightly disappointed. They'd finally found Sword 13 with great difficulty, yet because of Mu Wenhua's interference at that time, they had no choice but to split up once more. Fortunately, after that short meeting, Long Chen found out about Zhu Ziyin, and it could be considered to be comforted in his heart. Now, he had been delayed in the spiritual world ruins for too long, so much so that he had forgotten many things. Jian Shishan should have been trained during this period of time. Now that Long Chen had defeated the Tianfeng tribe, his name would definitely spread throughout the small spiritual world. Jian Shishan would definitely hear about it. At that time, it would be much easier for master and disciple to reunite again. "Master, where are we going next?" Long Yen also slightly eased the aura around his body. Immediately, it became a world of difference from when he fully released the demonic dragon's inheritance. Long Chen let out a long sigh and said, "It's time for us to leave. Although the spiritual world ruins are good, it is not a long-term place. Now, I've heard that the ruins of an ancient battlefield have been discovered in the extreme north of the small spiritual world. If I'm wrong, it should be the place where the people who entered the small spiritual world 10,000 years ago fought with the ruler. Thinking about it carefully, there might be many opportunities and treasures inside. I just don't know if the ancient battlefield has been completely excavated by others during this period of time. However, no matter what, we still have to go and take a look. After all, according to Jian Shishan's character, it is very likely that he will stay there." The 3 of them nodded to each other and agreed with Long Chen's suggestion. Very quickly, a primordial chaos flashed around the 3 of them. In the blink of an eye, they turned into 3 cold lights in this world of ice and snow. They directly charged towards the exit of the spirit world remains outside the world of ice and snow. Chapter 1768. After a long journey, Long Chen and the other 2 finally left the spiritual world ruins, which they had stayed in for nearly 2 months, and reappeared in the small spiritual world. At this moment, not many people could be seen in the small spiritual world. Even the previous gathering places were sparsely populated from afar. It could be seen that most of the people had already entered the spiritual world remains. After all, the spiritual opportunity remains were the most abundant with opportunities and treasures. There were also some people who had gone to the spiritual world battlefield ruins in the extreme north of the small spiritual world. As the location of the battlefield, there would naturally be countless experts who had fallen there. Naturally, those legendary spiritual treasures would also appear one after another. Therefore, the other places in the small spiritual world were naturally like this. There were not many people to be seen. At this time, Duan Hongchen also needed to go to the spiritual world battlefield ruins. Perhaps there, he could really see Jian Shishan, or there was hope to see Zhu Ziyin. The 3 of them left the spiritual world ruins, and did not rest at all. They directly rushed to the extreme north of the small spiritual world. By the way, Long Yuan, after you entered the Void Gate that day, what was it that allowed your strength to improve so quickly? Long Chen suddenly asked during the flight. Long Yuan quickly shook his head and said, Master, I can't be as lucky as you. Behind my void gate, there was a house that was similar to the spiritual medicine cultivation hall of the mysterious flame tribe. There were only a few herbs in the house. Thinking that I could not come here in vain, I borrowed the medicinal power of those herbs and cultivated there for half a month. Only then did I successfully advance to the Hong Meng Yuan Jia. Long Chen was a little embarrassed. It seemed that the mysterious flame dragon was right. Among the 5 void gates, only he had chosen the right place of inheritance. No, there was one more person. Long Chen suddenly thought of Wu Yundu Hai. It seemed that Wu Yundu Hai was also a person with foresight like him. Because of this, Long Chen's arrogance, Long Mu, who was standing beside Long Chen, grabbed Long Chen's sleeve without anyone noticing. What's wrong? Long Chen knew that Long Mu wouldn't usually show such a serious expression, so he immediately asked in a low voice. Seeing Long Chen's and Long Mu's solemn expressions, Long Yuan also became a little nervous. Long Yuan also caught some weak Hong Meng energy. At the same time, Long Yuan condensed the Hong Meng energy around him into a high state so that he could use it at any time. Long Chen frowned slightly. At the same time, he slowly released his Hong Meng outwards. He wanted to find out the reason why Long Mu was feeling uneasy. However, this level of detection didn't help Long Chen at all. The 3 of them were nervous for a long time, but they didn't find anything. However, what surprised the 3 of them was that the strange aura that lingered around the stage was still locked onto them and did not leave for a long time. Long Mu's eyes flashed with a trace of craftiness. His usually cold face suddenly became strange. Long Mu said in a low voice, "Be careful. The 3 of us have probably been targeted by something. Moreover, this thing's strength might be far above ours. We must be careful." Hearing this, Long Chen's face immediately became uneasy. He never thought that he would provoke another group of people just as he left the spiritual realm ruins. Could it be that the people this time were from one of the 10 great tribes like the Tianfeng tribe? Could it be that Feng Qingyang was right? Was the Xianyan inheritance in his hands really coveted by some people? Moreover, the strength of the people who came to investigate this time could make Long Mu feel dignified. Didn't that mean that this person's strength was Hong Meng Tianjing? Can you find the exact location? Long Chen asked in a low voice. His eyes flickered with uneasiness. Long Mu shook his head in a low voice and said, "Maybe we can try, but I'm not very confident." Long Chen hesitated for a while, then said decisively, "If you can try, then try. It's too uncomfortable to have a Hong Meng spirit pressing down on you." Long Mu understood and immediately condensed the Hong Meng spirit around him. After a while, Long Mu's body burst out a fierce Hong Meng spirit pillar and directly bombarded a place beside Long Mu like a thunderbolt. Long Yuan saw that there was indeed nothing there. Boom boom! Just when the Hong Meng spirit pillar bombarded the empty space, the eerily calm space actually burst out with a shocking rebounding force. After the rebounding force disappeared, 2 figures appeared in the empty space. Instead of calling them 2 figures, it was more appropriate to call them 2 light shadows at this moment. The 2 light shadows used some unknown method to completely conceal their aura. Moreover, they were not far away from Long Chen. They maintained the same speed as Long Chen and monitored Long Chen's every move. When the 2 silhouettes unleashed the rebounding force to shatter the primordial spirit pillar of the dragon tomb, the 2 of them completely revealed themselves. When Long Chen saw the appearance of the 2 figures clearly, he was immediately shocked. These 2 people were the 2 people that Long Chen met in the small spiritual world when he first entered the world of ice and snow. They were the 2 people that he did not understand. Who are these people? They can actually guess our location? Long Chen's eyes became slightly blurred. One must know that when Long Chen eavesdropped on the conversation between the 2 people, one of them wanted to kill Long Chen. Fortunately, Long Chen escaped quickly. Otherwise, it would be a problem for him to survive until now. Long Chen knew very well that the strength of these two mysterious people could not be underestimated. They were not much different from Hong Meng Tianjing. Or rather, they were the experts of Hong Meng Tianjing. Otherwise, how could they hide around them for so long before being discovered by Long Chen? Moreover, even the dragon's tomb had to expend a lot of effort to discover the location of these two people. After feeling the rebounding force, Long Chen completely understood that the strength of the two people in front of him was definitely not something that he could provoke. This person was fundamentally different from Feng Qingyang. Chapter 1769. The Peerless Dragon Emperor. This is really unexpected. I didn't expect the three of you to be able to detect the presence of the two of us. At this time, since the two mysterious men were forced by Long Mu to reveal their true bodies, it was naturally not convenient for them to continue hiding. The two men explained as they looked gloomily at Long Chen and the other two. One of them, the old man who wanted to kill Long Chen that day, suddenly said, "May I know who the two of you are? Why have you been following us? Do you have any ulterior motives?" Even though Long Chen had recognized the two mysterious men, he could not understand their thoughts. Logically speaking, if they wanted to kill Long Chen, they should have done so when they met. Why did they have to follow Long Chen for so long? "Young man, don't play dumb with me. We met once in that world of ice and snow," the old man who spoke earlier said with a smile. "Although we did not see your appearance at that time, I can clearly recognize the Hong Meng aura on your body. Moreover, you still have the Hong Meng mark that I left on you that day." Hong Meng mark? When Long Chen heard this, he immediately exclaimed in his heart. He never thought that this mysterious old man would actually leave a new primordial imprint on his body. It was no wonder. He had clearly rushed to the extreme north without stopping after leaving the spirit realm ruins. There was no delay in the middle. If these two people did not have the primordial imprint that they mentioned, they would not have been able to find him no matter what. Long Chen felt a wave of fear in his heart. He had witnessed the strength of these two people. Back then, this mysterious old man had merely used the Hong Meng aura around his body to force Long Chen to flee. He did not even dare to turn his head back. Now that they had come knocking on his door, he was indeed a little uneasy. At this time, the other mysterious man also spoke. "You ran so fast that day. I think you must have heard something. I don't know if you have told anyone in the past half a month?" At this moment, Long Chen really couldn't say anything. That day, when he eavesdropped, he was muddle-headed. These two people seemed to be talking in code. Long Chen didn't understand, but even hearing was a little difficult. However, these two mysterious people were not willing to let them off. Even if Long Chen wanted to regret all of this now, it was probably too late. After all, Long Chen did eavesdrop at that time. It was reasonable for the two of them to denounce Long Chen and his two companions. However, from the looks of it, the purpose of the two of them denouncing Long Chen and his two companions was to grind their bones and scatter their ashes. Only then would they be truly satisfied. However, Long Chen could not accept this situation. Long Chen shook his head and said, "I didn't hear anything. I was just passing by at that time." Hearing this, the previous mysterious man said lazily, "I don't care if you heard it or not. My principle is that I would rather kill by mistake than let someone go. Since the group of flying dancers from the Tianfeng tribe did not get rid of you, then this time, let me do it myself." Tianfeng tribe. Long Chen's heart suddenly thumped. Could it be that the reason why the Tianfeng tribe came to provoke him was because of these two mysterious men? But who were these two mysterious men? Long Chen hurriedly waved his hand and said, "Even if the two of you want to take my life, can you let me know a little about your identities before you do so? Otherwise, when my divine soul disappears in this world in the future, I won't be able to figure out anything. You're a dying man and you still have so many requests. Dream on." the mysterious man said angrily in his heart. When Long Chen saw this, he hurriedly said, "Could it be that the two of you don't want to know whether or not I have something that the two of you want to know?" Hearing this, the mysterious person finally hesitated. The two of them looked at each other and communicated for some time. The mysterious person, who was burning in his heart earlier, gradually calmed down the surging Yuan Meng's strength in his body. The mysterious man who came later said with a smile, "I have to say, perhaps you have something that my organization can use. If you can follow my organization wholeheartedly, you may be able to keep your lives today." Organization? Long Chen had some doubts in his heart as he replied, "Then can the two seniors tell me what this organization of ours is for?" "You don't have to worry about this. I almost forgot that you, Long Chen, are also a genius. Although your strength is a little weak, after all, a person like Feng Qingyang, who is at the 8th level of the Hong Meng Yuan Jie, lost to you. This shows that your strength is really extraordinary." Feng Qingyang was too confident. He wanted to join the organization, but he couldn't even do a good job. His reckless actions have helped you, the mysterious man said slowly. Long Chen roughly had some control over the entire situation in his heart. He also began to have some understanding of the two people in front of him. Feng Qingyang is really too arrogant and willful. It is really difficult for him to achieve great things. However, I am different. I can ignore my other strengths, but my luck is not only good. Whatever I want to do, I can rely on luck to succeed. Long Chen tried his best to stall for time with these two people. The impetuous old man from before snorted coldly and said, "In the end, you are still young. If you rely on luck for everything, then what is the use of working hard to cultivate?" Long Chen did not respond. The old man's companion smiled slightly and said, "Long Chen, you are really good. If you don't stand on the opposite side of me in the future and become a friend, I may consider accepting you as my disciple. However, if you can't show me enough sincerity to convince me that you really want to join our organization, then I will still kill you." Long Chen narrowed his eyes and said with a smile, "You two must be joking. Before I understand the situation of the organization you two are talking about, I will definitely not have too many thoughts about joining your organization. In addition, I really didn't hear anything in the world of ice and snow that day. I hope that you two will not find trouble with me again. If you can let me go today, Long Chen will definitely remember this when we meet again in the future." As soon as he finished speaking, the impetuous old man's expression immediately became furious. Previously, he had heard that Long Chen wanted to join their organization. Now, he immediately turned hostile. It seemed that he was trying to stall for time. "You are courting death." Chapter 1770. Before the old man could get angry, Long Mu, who was standing at the side, was already filled with anger. He took over Long Chen's words and shouted, "The two of you, do you really think you can do whatever you want just because you're in the Hong Meng firmament realm? You used the Tianfeng tribe to deal with us, and now you're back at us again after you failed. What? Do you really want to kill the three of us before you can rest easy? Let me tell you the truth. Since we can survive in the hands of the Tianfeng tribe, we can continue to live. Don't come looking for trouble with us again. We can't be bothered with your messy organization. Let's mind our own business and live our own lives. If you two continue to be so unforgiving, don't think that even though we're Hong Meng Yuan Jie, we can't do anything to you." As soon as he finished speaking, Long Yuan moved closer to Long Mu. The demonic dragon spear in his hand was awe-inspiring. "Oh, you're really arrogant. Ever since I've been promoted to Hong Meng Tianjing, this is the first time I've heard such words. Kid, I didn't pay attention to you before because this matter didn't have much to do with you. However, based on your words just now, no matter what you want to do, the three of you will die here." The mysterious old man shouted. Do you really think that you're invincible just because you defeated those idiots from the Tianfeng tribe? The other mysterious man continued, Don't even mention that we're Hong Meng Tianjing. Even if we're at the same level as you still have no chance of winning against us. As soon as he finished speaking, Long Mu smiled and didn't say anything else. However, Long Chun could clearly sense that some Hong Meng Tianjing was already jumping around Long Mu. Suddenly, in the next moment, a fierce Hong Meng Tianjing aura burst out from Long Mu's body. It directly pushed his body forward, leaving behind afterimages in the air. Swish swish. Long Mu's speed was like a bolt of lightning. In the blink of an eye, before Long Chun and Long Yuan could react, Long Mu's figure had already approached the two mysterious men. In an instant, Long Mu seized this opportunity and decisively released a fierce Hong Meng Qi in front of the two mysterious men. This wave of Hong Meng Qi was just like a sharp sword. The moment it was formed, it was wrapped in an extremely powerful killing aura. It directly rushed towards the necks of these two mysterious individuals in a manner that did not attract anyone's attention. When the aftermath of this Hong Meng Qi surged in the air, the two mysterious men were obviously shocked. In this Hong Meng Qi, these two Hong Meng Tianjing experts actually felt a sense of crisis between life and death. Naturally, they were slightly flustered. However, even though the Hong Meng Firmament Realm experts were flustered, their ability to adapt to the situation had almost reached a natural level. Almost without any hesitation, the two Hong Meng Firmament Realm experts emitted waves of dazzling Hong Meng light waves in the midst of their panic. These Hong Meng light waves immediately swept in an arc in the air and completely sealed the two men's bodies. Clang! The Hong Meng force emitted by the Long Mu steadily bombarded the Hong Meng light wave. For a time, the continuous Hong Meng explosion vortex bounced off and spun above the broadcast. Under the control of the two mysterious men, the bombardment force of the Hong Meng light waves caused by the explosion allowed them to temporarily avoid the sharp edge of the Long Mu. Whoosh! Just when the two mysterious men thought that they were absolutely safe, they suddenly felt a fierce force suppressing them from behind. They hurriedly turned around to look, only to discover that there was a pitch-black spear behind them. At this moment, it was wrapped in a fierce Hong Meng hurricane, which seemed to be surging toward them. The moment Long Yuan saw Long Mu make his move, he immediately jumped behind the two mysterious men. At that time, the mysterious men had to concentrate all their attention to resist the sudden attack of Long Mu, so it was difficult for them to notice what Long Yuan did. But now, the two mysterious men were unable to extricate themselves from the two continuous bombardments, and their expressions contained some anger. Soon, the Hong Meng force around one of the mysterious men expanded several times before Long Yuan's Hong Meng hurricane arrived. The Hong Meng force that was contained in the air also gradually condensed. The violent Hong Meng hurricane suddenly swept through the air. When Long Yuan's Sky Demon Dragon spear pierced toward the two mysterious men, the force contained in the Hong Meng hurricane directly shattered the Hong Meng force contained in the Sky Demon Dragon spear. What a strong force! Long Chen's eyes flashed with a trace of seriousness. Seeing the mysterious man so casually break the attack that Long Yuan had gathered with great difficulty, Long Chen was naturally anxious. Hong Meng Tianjing? It's not like I haven't reached that level before. Long Mu's attack did not succeed, but he was not angry. At this moment, Long Yuan temporarily disturbed the minds of the two mysterious men, which coincidentally gave Long Mu the best opportunity. Immediately after, a monstrous Hong Meng aura burst out from Long Mu's body. It was as if this aura had originally come from the air. In the blink of an eye, Long Mu had forcefully enveloped the two mysterious men within a radius of a few hundred feet. Long Chen felt this ferocious aura and was slightly moved for a moment. Previously, he knew Long Mu's approximate strength, but that was not Long Mu's true strength. Before Long Mu's death, he was a true Hong Meng Tianjing expert. The reason why he became a Hong Meng Yuan Jie after his rebirth was because his physical body did not meet the requirement. However, since he already had the experience of Hong Meng Tianjing, and Long Mu was a true dragon, if he chose to use the Hong Meng Azure art at this moment, the power would definitely be much stronger than the one that Long Chen used when he was at the Consolidation Realm in Hong Meng. Dragon War in the Sky. Long Mu spat out a masculine roar. At around this time, the Hong Meng aura that Long Mu had released previously all transformed into the control of the Hong Meng force. This could be considered the first battle that Long Mu experienced after his rebirth. Chapter 1771. If what Long Chen imagined really happened, even if it was possible, then Long Mu's current situation would be extremely dangerous. No matter how strong Long Mu was, if two Hong Meng Tianjing experts were to attack him at the same time, he would not be able to withstand it. But now that things had come to this, even if Long Chen wanted to intervene and help the dragon's tomb from the side, it was too late. At this time, Long Mu had already surrounded the space around him with his Hong Meng Qi, so Long Chen had no way of entering. Boom boom boom. Even 3 huge Hong Meng explosions resounded throughout the world. Gorgeous Hong Meng light waves erupted from the space like a tidal wave, and waves of extremely violent Hong Meng Qi shock waves tore apart the space condensed by Long Mu. Long Chen still remembered the name of this space, Dragon War in the Sky. Thinking about it carefully, it might be a secret battle technique unique to Long Mu. At the moment when the space was shattered, a Hong Meng dragon condensed from Hong Meng Qi suddenly appeared in the air. Its body contained an endless amount of Hong Meng Qi ripples. The moment it appeared, it shook violently and immediately rushed towards the 2 mysterious people. As it moved back and forth, a huge amount of Hong Meng Qi ripples swept through the air, and immediately, an unimaginably huge storm swept through the space. Dragon traversing mountains and rivers for 10,000 li. Long Mu suddenly shouted, and before his voice fell, the huge Hong Meng dragon arrived beside the 2 mysterious people like a ghost, carrying an endless amount of Hong Meng Qi ripples. Kaboom! The shocking Hong Meng Qi ripples suddenly exploded at the point of intersection. This sound wave came from the light spirit pagoda condensed by the 2 mysterious people. It must be known that this light spirit pagoda did indeed give Long Mu too much resistance. Long Mu knew very well that after his previous sneak attack had failed, he had completely lost the opportunity to defeat the 2 people in front of him. Now, what he needed to do was to figure out a way to get out of here. Although it seemed that he still had a huge advantage, this advantage only came from his temporary burst of power, which could be considered as temporarily intimidating the 2 Hong Meng Tianjing experts. If he waited for the 2 experts to completely react, he only needed to give them a slight advantage to completely destroy the advantage that Long Mu had spent almost all of his effort to condense. Moreover, no matter what, this battle had to be ended quickly. Otherwise, it would be unreasonable for him to drag this out with the 2 Hong Meng Tianjing experts. What Long Mu needed to do now was to use all of his strength to unleash his final attack. Even if he couldn't defeat the 2 mysterious people, he needed to prove to them that Long Mu wasn't someone they could casually provoke. Therefore, when the Hong Meng dragon smashed into the light spirit pagoda with a huge amount of Hong Meng, Long Mu secretly poured almost half of his Hong Meng into the light spirit pagoda to create such a dazzling scene. After the light spirit pagoda took the brunt of the Hong Meng dragon's violent impact, although it was initially able to resist the Hong Meng dragon's boundless Hong Meng force, as time passed, the light spirit pagoda seemed to suddenly collapse. Following a violent Hong Meng explosion, the light spirit pagoda and Long Mu's Hong Meng dragon disappeared into the sky at the same time. At this point, Long Mu had achieved his goal. He immediately retracted the Hong Meng force around him and slowly came to Long Chen's side, doing his best to conceal his Hong Meng force. The 2 mysterious men stared at the scene before them with their mouths agape. They couldn't help but feel a little surprised. And when they saw that the dragon's tomb was still as lively as ever, they were even more puzzled. Who are you? Finally, the mysterious person who condensed the light spirit pagoda trembled as a trace of panic appeared in his eyes. It was clear that the dragon tomb had achieved its goal of leaving a mark in the hearts of these two people about how they viewed it. Who cares who he is? Even if he could break your light spirit pagoda, he must have relied on brute force. I'm afraid that he's already exhausted and can't even stand properly. Why don't we take advantage of this opportunity to kill the three of them in one fell swoop? When he saw his companion's panicked expression, the other mysterious person immediately expressed his dissatisfaction. Long Mu smiled and said, "Looks like I didn't teach you a lesson just now. I don't mind teaching you a lesson today. Don't think that I'm just a Hong Meng Yuan Jia. If we really fight, I'm afraid that the two of you won't be enough." Arrogant. When the other mysterious person heard this, his expression immediately changed. As a Hong Meng Tianjing expert, he was actually taught a lesson by someone with the strength of a Hong Meng Yuan Jia. Not to mention anything else, just this loss of face was enough to embarrass him. Indeed, you're very strong. Once I summon my light spirit pagoda, it's impossible for it to be broken by others. You're the first one I've seen. However, don't be too arrogant. The light spirit pagoda isn't the only thing I have. If the two of us join forces, I'm afraid that you won't be able to deal with us. The panicked mysterious person from before calmly said. You have other methods? Long Mu glanced at the two mysterious people and coldly snorted, piercing shadow technique? Or the heavenly light fist? When they heard this, the two mysterious people's expressions changed. The mysterious person with the light spirit pagoda quickly shouted, "You're a mysterious person. How do you know about the piercing shadow technique and the heavenly light fist?" Long Mu put on an extremely disdainful expression and muttered, "You were the one who shouted just now. The light spirit pagoda is Lin Meng's Tao spiritual pagoda. I only guessed it roughly. Looks like I'm right?" The mysterious person was slightly frightened and said, "I didn't expect you to be so knowledgeable." "Not only am I knowledgeable, but I also know your goal," Long Mu said indifferently. Hearing this, the two mysterious men smiled at each other and said, "Then tell us, what is our purpose?" Long Mu raised his eyebrows and said, "An expert from the Tao spiritual pagoda came to the small spiritual world. I'm sure it's not an ordinary matter. And this small spiritual world doesn't have any spiritual treasures that can help your sister Hong Meng Tianjing expert. So, what you're interested in is this small spiritual world." Chapter 1772. If what Long Chun imagined really happened, even if it was possible, then Long Mu's situation at this moment would be extremely dangerous. No matter how strong Long Mu was, he would not be able to withstand the combined attack of two Hong Meng Tianjing experts. But now that things had come to this, even if Long Chen wanted to intervene and help the dragon's tomb from the side, it was too late. At this time, Long Mu had already surrounded the space around him with his Hong Meng Qi. Long Chen had no way to enter. Boom, boom, boom. Even three huge Hong Meng explosions resounded through the world. Gorgeous Hong Meng light waves erupted from the space like a tide. Shock waves wrapped in incomparably violent Hong Meng force tore apart the space condensed by Long Mu. Long Chun still remembered that the name of this space was called Dragon War in the Sky. Thinking about it carefully, perhaps it was Long Mu's unique secret combat technique. The moment this space shattered, a Hong Meng dragon condensed from Hong Meng force suddenly appeared in the air. Its body contained endless Hong Meng ripple shock force. The moment its figure appeared, it shook violently and immediately whizzed towards the two mysterious people. As they moved back and forth, a huge amount of primordial chaos storm swept out in midair. Immediately, an unimaginably huge storm swept out in this space. Dragon traversing mountains and rivers for 10,000 miles. Long Mu suddenly shouted. Before his voice fell, the huge Hong Meng dragon, carrying endless Hong Meng force, arrived beside the two mysterious people like a ghost. Kaboom! The shocking Hong Meng explosion force suddenly exploded at the intersection. This sound wave came from the light spirit pagoda condensed by the two mysterious people. It must be known that this light spirit pagoda did give Long Mu too much resistance. Long Mu understood that after his previous sneak attack failed, he had completely lost the opportunity to defeat the two people in front of him. Now, what he needed to do was to figure out a way to escape. Although it seemed that he still had a huge advantage, this advantage only came from his temporary burst of power. It could be considered as temporarily intimidating the two Hong Meng Tianjing experts. If he waited for the two experts to completely react, he only needed to give them a slight advantage to completely destroy the advantage that Long Mu had spent all his effort to condense. Moreover, no matter what, this battle had to be ended quickly. Otherwise, it would be unreasonable for him to drag this out with the two Hong Meng Tianjing experts. What Long Mu needed to do now was to use all his strength to unleash his final attack. Even if he couldn't defeat the two mysterious people, he needed to prove to them that Long Mu wasn't someone they could casually provoke. Therefore, when the Hong Meng dragon smashed into the light spirit pagoda with a huge amount of Hong Meng, Long Mu secretly poured almost half of his Hong Meng into the light spirit pagoda. Only then did such a dazzling scene occur. After the light spirit pagoda suffered the violent impact of the Hong Meng dragon, although it was initially able to resist the Hong Meng dragon's boundless power, as time passed, the light spirit pagoda seemed to suddenly collapse. Following a violent explosion, the Hong Meng dragon and Long Mu's Hong Meng dragon disappeared into the sky at the same time. At this point, Long Mu had achieved his goal. He immediately retracted the Hong Meng dragon and slowly came to Long Chen's side, doing his best to cover up his Hong Meng dragon's depleted state. The two mysterious men stared blankly at the scene before them. They couldn't help but feel a little surprised. When they saw that the dragon's tomb was still as lively as ever, they were even more puzzled. Who are you? Finally, the mysterious person who condensed the light spirit pagoda began to tremble as a trace of panic appeared in his eyes. Clearly, the dragon tomb had achieved its goal and left a mark in the hearts of these two people about how they viewed it. Who cares who he is? Even if he was able to break your light spirit pagoda, he must have relied on brute force. I'm afraid that he's already exhausted and can't even stand properly. Why don't we use this opportunity to kill the three of them in one fell swoop? When he saw the panicked expression on his companion's face, the other mysterious person immediately expressed his dissatisfaction. Long Mu smiled and said, "It seems that I didn't teach you a lesson just now. I don't mind teaching you a lesson today. Don't think that I'm just a Hong Meng Yuan Jia. If we really fight, I'm afraid that the two of you won't be enough." Arrogant. When the mysterious person heard this, his expression immediately changed. As a Hong Meng Tianjing expert, he was actually taught a lesson by someone with the strength of a Hong Meng Yuan Jia. Not to mention anything else, just this loss of face was enough to embarrass him. Indeed, you're very strong. Once I summon my light spirit pagoda, it's impossible for it to be broken by others. You're the first one I've seen. However, don't be too arrogant. The light spirit pagoda isn't the only thing I have. If the two of us work together, I'm afraid that you won't be able to deal with us. The panicked mysterious person from before calmly said. You have other methods? Long Mu glanced at the two mysterious people and coldly snorted, piercing shadow technique? Or heavenly light fist? When they heard this, the two mysterious people's expressions immediately changed. The mysterious person who condensed the light spirit pagoda quickly shouted, "You're a mysterious person. How do you know about the piercing shadow technique and heavenly light fist?" Long Mu put on an extremely disdainful expression and muttered, you were the one who shouted just now. The Light Spirit Pagoda is Lin Meng's Tao Spiritual Pagoda. I only guessed it roughly. It seems that I'm right? The mysterious person was slightly frightened and said, I didn't expect you to be so knowledgeable. Not only am I knowledgeable, but I also know your goal. Long Mu said indifferently. Hearing this, the two mysterious people smiled and said, Then why don't you tell us what our goal is? Long Mu raised his eyebrows and said, An expert from the Tao Spiritual Pagoda came to the small spiritual world. I'm sure it's not an ordinary matter. Moreover, this small spiritual world doesn't have any spiritual treasures that can help your sister from the Hongmeng Tianjing. So, what you're interested in is this small spiritual world. Chapter 1773. Hearing these words, the complacent expression of the two mysterious men immediately disappeared from their faces. At the same time, astonishment spread across their faces. Who are you? The mysterious man was furious. Obviously, what Long Mu said was right. After hearing Long Mu's words, Long Chen immediately recalled that Wu Yundu Hai had indeed said such words to Long Chen and Long Mu in the land of inheritance of the Xianyan tribe. At that time, Wu Yundu Hai had guessed that someone was coveting this small spiritual world, but he didn't know who it was. At this time, these two mysterious men from Lin Mingji's land of inheritance might really be the people mentioned by Wu Yundu Hai. Now, looking at the reaction of the two mysterious men, Long Chen also understood that these two mysterious men, including the organization behind them, were indeed planning to take over the entire small spiritual world. This kind of thing was undoubtedly a very huge project. It must have required an extremely complicated array formation to make the small spiritual world listen to their control. Just like the previous leader of the Holy Church activated the array formation and opened the entrance to the small spiritual world in advance after hundreds of years. These powerhouses entered the small spiritual world because they didn't know about the array formation. As everyone knew, if the small spiritual world didn't open in advance this time, the entrance would randomly appear in a certain place in the Hongmeng polar region every 1,200 years. Many tribes in the Hongmeng polar region would take advantage of this opportunity to go to the small spiritual world to train and seek opportunities and treasures. Even in the Hongmeng polar region, there was a strict population control. If a tribe was not a large one, the number of people that could enter the small spiritual world was limited. In other words, it was even more difficult for people from other polar regions to enter the small spiritual world. Such a good place to train was only controlled by the Hongmeng polar region, which really made people from other polar regions a little jealous. Obviously, taking advantage of the early opening of the small spiritual world, there were no restrictions for anyone to enter. Naturally, this made people from other polar regions have evil thoughts. Even if he had to make some sacrifices, as long as he could gain control of this small spirit world, it would be the greatest victory. Perhaps that was the reason why the two from Lin Mingji's earthbound pagoda had come here. However, this kind of thing couldn't be leaked out. After all, the small spiritual world had belonged to the Hongmeng polar region since ancient times. The people of the Hongmeng polar region had already regarded it as a custom originating from the Hongmeng polar region. If the people of the Hongmeng polar region knew the thoughts of these people, they would definitely come to suppress them. So what if these two mysterious people were strong? After all, this was the small spiritual world, and the entrance to the small spiritual world was in the Hongmeng polar region. In other words, whether it was inside or outside the small spirit world, the Hongmeng polar region would always have the advantage in numbers. This was the reason why these two mysterious people didn't dare to reveal their purpose. Moreover, in order to achieve their purpose, they definitely needed the help of many people, which formed their organization. At that time, in the world of ice and snow, the news that Long Chen had heard was exactly what these two mysterious people were afraid of. It seemed that they had a plan on how to seize the small spiritual world. Therefore, this was the fundamental reason why these two mysterious people had been clinging onto Long Chen without letting go. They were afraid that Long Chen really knew their purpose and plan. If it was leaked out, then all their efforts would be in vain. After noticing the uncalm reactions of these two mysterious people, Long Chen and Long Mu looked at each other and smiled. Long Mu waved his hand and said, "Don't ask me how I know. You won't understand even if I tell you. However, what I want to say is that I have no interest in this so-called organization of yours, including its plan. Of course, you might not believe me, and it's very likely that you'll make a move against me in the next moment, so I'll say it first. When I'm alive, there won't be any news in this small spirit world. But if I'm dead, I can guarantee that the 10 Hong-Meng polar region tribes in this small spirit world, and even everyone in this Hong-Meng polar region, will immediately know the whole story. At that time, not only will you not be able to complete the mission, I'm afraid that the two of you won't even be able to return to the Dao God Pagoda alive. Don't forget, in today's small spirit world, not only are you two Hong-Meng Tianjing experts, but the strength of the people in the 10 major tribes is also not something you can deal with." As soon as he finished speaking, the expressions of the two mysterious people immediately became extremely rich. From the initial suspicion, to panic, and then to uneasiness. Facing Long Mu, they gradually became a little fearful. Long Chen's words were in line with Long Chen's thoughts. He wasn't from the Hong-Meng polar ground to begin with. Furthermore, he still had to work for the revival of the Long-Meng polar ground in the future. Naturally, he would have to deal with the people from the Hong-Meng polar ground. Although Long Chen would eventually have to face the Hong-Meng polar grounds, 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 Hong-Meng polar grounds. If I wanted to leak this information, it would have already spread in the spiritual world remains when I was eavesdropping on your conversation in the world of ice and snow. Your actions would have also been announced to the entire small spiritual world. To tell you the truth, I am not from the Hong-Meng polar region. Therefore, I am not interested in the so-called ownership of the small spiritual world. Therefore, if you laugh out at the Hong-Meng mark on my body, we will not interfere with each other in the future. Otherwise, if you want to use your strength to completely seal my mouth, I can tell you that it will be very difficult. Moreover, if you do this, the things we talked about before will really happen. Long Chen also took a step forward and said with conviction. In this way, the two mysterious people became hesitant. Long Mu and Long Chen's words had indeed made them a little scared. They were not considered leaders in the organization. Even the strength of the Hong-Meng Tianjing was considered to be at the bottom of the organization. If they really made a mistake and leaked this big news, they would be the first to be killed by the organization to vent their anger. This kind of thing could not happen. Therefore, at this time, they chose to agree with Long Chen's suggestion. No matter how they thought about it, it was a good idea. Chapter 1774. The atmosphere became a little tense. The 5 people in the air did not speak, but their faces constantly revealed their current mood. After a long time, the two mysterious people looked at each other. After communicating with their eyes, one of them finally looked directly at Long Chen and said, "All right, if you really have no intention of revealing this matter, the two of us will not pursue the matter any further. However, you must also promise that no matter what, you will not reveal a single word about this matter." After he finished speaking, Long Mu smiled slightly and did not say anything else. Long Chun continued, "Then what about the Hong Meng mark on my body that is related to you?" If he still allowed this mark to remain in his body, the two mysterious people would be able to find out his whereabouts at any time. This was too dangerous. Long Chun could only feel that this was a little awkward. The mysterious person chuckled and said, "As long as you do not reveal this information, the use of this Hong Meng mark will not be revealed. However, if I find out that you have spread the news about our organization, then I will naturally follow this mark and come to kill you." After hearing this, before Long Chun could respond, a wave of Hong Meng energy floated around the two mysterious people. A moment later, the two of them directly turned into a green light and directly fled. In less than a breath's time, the two mysterious people completely disappeared from Long Chen's sight. It seemed that the two mysterious people left so quickly because they were afraid that Long Mu would threaten them with the Hong Meng mark on Long Chen's body. After all, Long Mu had already gained the upper hand. The remaining Hong Meng mark on Long Chen's body became the last thing that the two mysterious people could rely on. After all, they had already discussed some matters with Long Mu. Now that they left in such a hurry, it made Long Chen feel uncomfortable. Looking at the two mysterious people who disappeared in the blink of an eye, Long Mu coldly snorted and said, "If not for the fact that I did not want to reveal my true body and could only fight with my human form, these two people would not even have the right to move, let alone fight back." Long Chen smiled helplessly and said in disappointment, "Long Mu, do you have any way to deal with the Hong Meng mark on my body?" Long Mu pursed his lips and said, "In any case, I did not sense it. If it was on your body when we were in the world of ice and snow, I would have sensed it. Therefore, I always feel that these two bastards are lying to you. Don't take it to heart. Even if they did, do we need to be afraid of them?" Long Chen shook his head and said, "Previously, he also said that there should be many people in their organization. Looking at the actions of these two mysterious people, they should be the bottom of the line in this organization. In other words, this mysterious organization has countless experts. So, what does this have to do with me?" Long Mu shrugged indifferently and said, "No matter which polar region it is in, this small spiritual world will eventually belong to me. After all, this is my father's place. Even if they control the location of this small spiritual world, can they control this small spiritual world? Moreover," Long Mu continued, "why don't you think about it? Can a formation really change the trajectory of a space? If it is so simple, I'm afraid there is no need for any organization. Moreover, the people in the Hong Meng polar region are not fools. There are so many experts in the 10 major tribes. If they notice a trace of abnormality at the entrance of the small spiritual world, they will definitely discover the activities of this mysterious organization very quickly. There are so many people in the Hong Meng polar region. Can't they really deal with these people from the Lin Meng polar region?" After hearing Long Mu's words, Long Chun came back to his senses. Indeed, under certain circumstances, the ownership of this small spiritual world was naturally not worth discussing. After all, in this small spiritual world, the ownership of the entire small spiritual world was the most important. But it was a pity that the people from the Lin Meng polar region did not realize this. "You're right. No matter what the people from the two polar regions do, it has nothing to do with us. In this place, I have to improve my strength as soon as possible." Long Chun looked ahead and said, "The extreme north is where the ancient battlefield remains. Perhaps we will come across a large gathering point along the way. I hope that we will be able to obtain some useful information when we reach there." After finishing his words, Long Chun and the other two tidied up and set off again. Their destination was still the extreme north. After Long Chun and the other two left, two figures once again appeared in the space where they were originally at. They were the two mysterious people. It turned out that they did not run away previously. Just like when they appeared, they chose to hide around Long Chen. Naturally, after Long Chen thought that the two mysterious people had left, the two mysterious people also heard every single word that Long Chen said. "What do you think?" One of the mysterious people looked a little hesitant. Looking at the direction where Long Chen and the other two left, he slowly said to the other mysterious person, "No matter what, this news must not be leaked." However, what that person said before is very interesting. The other mysterious person narrowed his eyes, and a playful smile flashed across his face. "You mean, what he said about revealing his true body?" The previous mysterious person was slightly suspicious. "Yes." The other person nodded and said, "Do you remember the Hong Ming's firmament art that he used before? I have never seen it before. However, the strength of the Hong Ming's firmament art is too strong. Moreover, he also said that this small spiritual world was his father's painstaking effort. This made me even more confused. This person's identity is a little worth pondering. Not only him, but these three people also need to be carefully examined. Especially that guy called Long Chen. He doesn't look like a very powerful person. He has never been defeated before. He is really powerful," the mysterious person said loudly. "It seems that these three people can't be left alive. For the sake of the future plan, and for the survival of both of us, we must completely kill these three people even if we have to hire someone." The previous mysterious person's eyes suddenly became determined. His expression was immediately filled with a murderous intent. "You mean to say that we should let that guy deal with these three people?" The other person was slightly frightened. The mysterious person nodded and said, "No matter what, anyone who can possibly kill us must be eliminated. No matter what secrets the three of them have, the cleanest way is to kill them." You're tuning in to the Phoenix Knights YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.